All right, welcome everyone to Reality Check. It is the Wednesday, midweek edition of Reality Check here on the home of Black Talk Media. It is WURD 96.1, FM 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. I'm Charles Ellison. I'm your host, executive producer, and also creator of Reality Check here on WURD. I'm at Ellison Report on Twitter.com, by the way, at Ellison Report on Twitter.com. Also, for more, go to our companion magazine for this program, our exclusive companion magazine to Reality Check on WURD. It is the B Note, the BE Note, THEBENote.com. I've gotten a lot of response to, and so I've kept it there before we've updated the most recent piece of content for the B Note. Reopen schools, boycott them instead. Definitely want to continue to have a conversation about that. Where is that conversation beyond pandemic when we're talking about reopening schools? But it's a joint composition, a joint analysis or stream of thoughts by myself and also Dr. G.S. Potter, who's contributing editor at the BENote.com and also a regular contributor here on Reality Check WURD. I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. It appears we have the phone lines open this 10 o'clock hour at the top of this Wednesday, midweek edition. I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. 215-634-8065. 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open to talk about any number of issues or any number of concerns right now, local, state, national, that are on your mind as we're listening in to Reality Check, as we're getting into the midday. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. It's a very frigid, chilly 30 degrees in Philly at this time, and we're expecting there's snow in the forecast for tomorrow, also Saturday, Sunday, and a lot more colder throughout the weekend into next week. Won't get any more warmer than 40 degrees until next Tuesday, and even then we're looking at a combination of like a snow rain mix, but could change between now and then. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, we saw opening arguments in yesterday's Senate impeachment conviction trial of former President Donald Trump. A lot of critique of Trump's defense lawyers and a lot of folks stunned that they were that bad, that lead defense lawyer Bruce Castor was that bad. Just a spectacularly spectacular fail of a performance, and sources and reports saying that the former president was fuming with rage over how bad the delivery was in the Senate impeachment conviction trial. Now, does that mean that suddenly Republicans are going to line up and we'll get those 17 additional votes needed to go for conviction? We don't know. There are reports that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is actively telling his caucus or members in the Senate Republican caucus to, quote, vote their conscience. Vote their conscience. Basically signaling to them that, okay, we did vote against the constitutionality of holding the Senate impeachment trial. We voted against, we tried to end it by saying that it was anti-constitutional. However, you can still vote for conviction. At least that's what sources are saying. That's what a variety of reports are saying. They're saying, Mitch McConnell is, kind of maybe perhaps looking at this as an opportunity, and others who are trying to retake the Republican Party back, they're feeling like, maybe if we, at least cut off Donald Trump's ability to run for office again, which, which is something that conviction would trigger, then, that could be a good course. So, we don't know anything could happen between now and then, but apparently House impeachment managers have um, a new video, apparently some never before seen security footage of that January 6th attack. And so they're going to be presenting that video. They're going to be presenting that video today. They're also not, they have a full 16 hours to argue their case, and they will not use that full 16 hours. They feel like they don't need to. They feel like this is pretty open and shut, and really it just falls on Senate Republicans. I mean, everything just falls on Senate Republicans, whether or not they want to convict. So, that's what's happening in Washington, D.C. now. Going to, transitioning or switching from the Senate impeachment conviction trial, because most Americans aren't really concerned about that, even though they want accountability, but they're not concerned about that. What people are concerned about is the pandemic and the economic tailspin we find ourselves in. So there's a CBS News YouGov poll that's just out, finding that 83% of Americans favor passing the pandemic economic relief package. 83% of Americans, and you have large majorities of Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike. Also, Americans over all income levels who want the stimulus bill. So the stimulus bill is overwhelmingly popular as far as a very reliable, typically reliable CBS News YouGov poll indicates. And that's kind of where that's the latest poll where folks stand. However, in other news, as far as the vaccine and looking at the same poll, 6 in 10 Americans believe that the vaccine rollout has been too slow in their states. Interestingly enough, 73% of Americans think the process of vaccine rollout has been fair. Clearly, it has been not, but this includes majorities of non-white and low-income Americans who are saying the same thing, which is very interesting because all the news is showing, not even suggesting, but vividly illustrating that vaccine rollout has been very unfair. If anything, we're still seeing multiple, not just in Philly, but all over the place, we're seeing disparate treatment when it comes to vaccine rollout, vaccine distribution. Black, brown, low-income communities getting fewer vaccine doses compared to white, affluent communities, white, middle-class, affluent communities. And so that's an ongoing problem. So, there's been a little bit of progress in terms of people wanting the vaccine or convincing Americans to get the vaccine. Just 22% of Americans in this poll are saying that they have no intention of getting vaccinated. And those are mostly Republicans, low income, lower levels of education, and non-white Americans seem to be the ones, at least in this poll, who are relatively more reluctant to get vaccine than Democrats or those with higher income educational attainment levels. So there's a lot of incongruity there in that when we're looking at the poll as far as vaccine rollout is concerned. When we look at President Biden's handling of the coronavirus outbreak thus far, looking at job ratings, you have 64% of Americans overall feel like he's doing a good job. 36% say he's doing a bad job. So there's that consistent 30 to 40% that the Trumpites, people that they're just not going to be convinced otherwise or any other way. Overall job rating, Biden is starting off strong with a 61% approval rating right now. 61% approval rating. Here's something I found very curious too, because there's all this talk about, and I think Biden's instincts, I think correctly informed him on this. Whether or not bipartisan support is very important to get an economic relief package passed. 41% of Americans totally feel like bipartisan support is very important. Just 35% of Democrats think the same. 40% of Democrats think that. 52% of Republicans, apparently bipartisanship suddenly is so important to them. But it just goes back to my earlier argument. I was talking about this last year, where we were saying that it's, Americans don't want bipartisanship. Bipartisanship right now is a myth, particularly when we're in a moment of crisis like this. Americans just want stuff to work. They just want stuff to work. So they don't care about bipartisanship. They care about, working stuff, stuff actually coming together. But they really have no concerns and no interest in bipartisanship. So, that's definitely something that, we did kind of, we could tell. And I think President Biden has some sort of instinct on that. And so as far as we can tell, we're still on path to getting that $1.9 trillion pandemic relief package passed, and it being done through budget reconciliation. But obviously there's some negotiations over, what's in the weeds of that. 215-634, we got phone lines open for this entire 10 o'clock hour. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to George in Center City, who's calling in for a reality check. George?
Good morning, Charles. How are you?
Hey, what's happening? Good morning.
You've been having a very interesting show, and I've been enjoying it. So have the seniors and all the senior complexes. They appreciate it. Charles, you had brought the people from sanitation on. You had also brought people from
last
the
year.
Directors. Right. You had brought all the people and the players in. And they all, even the mayor's chief of staff and, Oginger and the mayor's, lapdog, he even said, that they would make sure that all the sanitation workers' trucks were disinfected. You see guys riding around, three guys in a truck. Never, at the end of the day, you can go to any yard. They never disinfect the trucks. They said that at the end of the day, each one of those trucks would be open after they go to the dump. At the end of the day, they would be disinfected because we had over 400 and something sanitation workers die before they had to take it serious. They have yet to give out any of the hazmat material. That they have a whole warehouse full of it. Aprons, boots, everything they need they have, but they refuse to give it out. And they have yet to have the guys at the end of the day. These guys, they got people that get paid to do that don't do it. They don't even show up. So maybe you need Rebecca Reinhardt to come on and explain to us why is the money allocated for that, or ask Curtis Jones. Why is it that the money has been allocated for that, but yet and now we got, the only hiring that the city does is for sanitation workers. And you have already had 150, close to 200 young guys who applied for the job, drop dead with COVID. Now, we're talking about all this other foolishness that's going on in the city. It's not really foolishness because they don't care about the killings until these collar-wearing, these phony collar-wearing preachers go up there and make peace with who they're supposed to make peace with. It's going to go on, But right now my interest is these sanitation workers that I think that they call everything essential, but nobody does anything, And it's not like the mayor's going to, the mayor say, hey, we give them the money. And Carlton Williams, you can't blame him. He's the commissioner, and he also said.
He's taking guidance from the mayor. He's taking cues from the mayor.
Right. He told you point blank, he said, look, we can only do what we work with, what we do. He said he would look into it, and they had started, making the guys more stuff. But all of a sudden it stopped after 2 or 3 weeks. Now we're up to 150 to 175 sanitation workers that has already dropped dead. You can't blame the people who are in charge. With, the union. The union should do something about it, but, why are they scared to death, I don't know. I don't think Kenny called them in there because their boss is the president of the District Council 33. Now, Pete Matthews even said out of his own mouth that they would make sure that those sanitation workers had the proper equipment and those trucks would be disinfected. It's funny that traffic, water department, all those people have their trucks at the end of the day, mandatory that their trucks is disinfected, but it's not mandatory that trash people, the trash man, which is, they don't even consider them essential. Now, maybe you can, Charles, get somebody back on here and explain, or maybe we need to take further steps where people start losing their jobs.
Hmm.
I mean, because I'm really getting I'm going to start taking it personal, which I never take anything personal, but I think
Oh,
it's
you
good,
don't?
sad, and sick. No, Charles, when I start taking stuff personal, it really becomes ugly. Believe me. Everybody answers my call. And let me ask you this here before I go. The police commissioner, be as though you're black and you was one of the first ones or the second ones that reached out for her. Did you get an answer back if she's coming on your show since she's got her black card and she's making her rounds?
We're still working on it. Yeah, I'm not sure which. I know. We're working on. Yeah, I mean, she should have responded by now. I agree with you. I don't know what's going on there. So I mean, hopefully we'll get her.
Well, maybe you're at the bottom of the blacklist. You think so? Now she got a black. She officially got her black card back. She
got a black card back.
She had an honorary white card because she made all. But one thing I can say, she made all her rounds to white media before she thought about black.
Well, that's what people, people tend to forget, and I appreciate that point too, George, because people, we have to sometimes remind people that black radio is, black media is mainstream media. People don't, they think it's just kind of like segregated media over here in a corner, and it's not to be taken seriously. But everyone who listens to WURD knows that WURD is taken seriously. WURD is a major mainstream media outlet in the city of Philadelphia. And it operates sometimes on bigger scale and covering events and news than those predominantly white or those white-owned outlets and institutions that people are so used to listening to. So I mean, people like the police commissioner and others. I mean, I am in a conversation right now. We're trying to work out the logistics of having the superintendent on to have a conversation. That's pending. But people can keep playing that game all they want of like not showing up on black media. People do realize, I mean, that Philly was won in 2020, partly due to the amplification of the voting conversation on WURD. So I mean, people like the police commissioner or whomever else avoid black media or any other elected officials or public officials. And you do know there are a lot of folks like on city council who understand this, but others don't seem to understand that. They do that at their own peril, at their own political peril. So, I mean, they can continue to, to keep avoid, to your point, George. But, we've made the effort and we'll continue to with that effort. So, because the vast majority of victims of violence in the city are black people. Have that conversation on black. It's not even like white media is prioritizing the violence conversation. I go to the Philadelphia Inquirer on a regular basis, and it's not front page that Philly is dealing with a violence epidemic. It's just not front page all the time, or some of the more grisly, horrific murders that we've been talking about on this station. So it's like it's not their priority. It's like something that's going on in some far off safari. That's the way they look at it. That's what, like a lot of white people in the city of Philadelphia, that's how they look at, the types of challenges and distress and violence that we struggle with daily and routinely in our communities. George, I have to let you go because I have to go to a break. I'm going to keep the phone lines open at 215. Thanks for that point. All points taken, well taken, George. We do want to I do want to talk with the sanitation workers and kind of follow up and see what they're up to. 215-634-8065, 866-361. 0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll come back with open phone lines.
Hey, WURD family. Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. Jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Livelihood. The new initiative from WURD Radio to connect Philadelphians to resources to help take the next steps in their professional lives. WordWorks.com features career readiness tools, entrepreneurship resources, funding opportunities, and events to expand your livelihood. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey.
Work, 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 work. To me, I be work.
Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Yeah, as you know, we do Black History 365 days a year here on WURD, your home of Black Talk Media, also the only Black-owned and operated talk radio station in the entire Commonwealth, this very vast Commonwealth or state of Pennsylvania. And frankly, it's becoming like the only source of like just good, textured, insightful, and important conversation and information for much of the nation, for much of the world. We do that here on WURD. And to continue to support that effort, to keep that ongoing, to keep that institution strong, you can become a 4WURD member today. So go to wordradio.com/join now. WURD Radio, WURDradio.com/join now. Let them know that Reality Check is your favorite show. So just put in check in the checkout phase of your purchase when you're becoming a new 4WURD member or a renewed 4WURD member today. Just use the keyword check to let them know that Reality Check is your favorite show. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also wanted to let folks know, if you have a young person who is looking at colleges, looking at making that next big step, there is a virtual HBCU campus tour that's happening all week long. It's happening right now, virtual HBCU campus tour that's happening this week. And in fact, today there's a virtual tour at noon Eastern for Winston-Salem State in North Carolina, and also at 3 p.m. for Delaware State University across the bridge from Philly today, virtual HBCU tour. And then tomorrow it's going to be Southern University in Louisiana. Happen to know those folks down there. It's a good school. And Kentucky State University, Kentucky, that's happening tomorrow. Once again, for more information, you can go to the B-Note, THEBENOTE.com, THEBENOTE.com for that virtual HBCU tour schedule. You can find out more there. And learnforlife.org/college-week is to also get information, and you can just get straight access. You can get into and you can see what those, you can have your young person see what those colleges look like. Have at it, and happy touring. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Prince out of Schuylkill, who's calling in for a Reality Check. Prince.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
There has to be a lot of people who are not African Americans listen to this station, because right after your interview with District Attorney Larry Krasner, when he made the statement that he usually don't release photos of folks, right after your interview on the 12 o'clock news, he released a photo of the police officer who was driving drunk and ran into the house. So I guess to some extent, we thank you for at least the opportunity to ask questions that will yield some results. Also, the SEPTA workers, as well as the school district workers, as well as the sanitation workers, are all represented by unions and all represented by African Americans who are the presidents of those unions. And it is impossible to think that you would send teachers into schools that have been unkept for years, and now under the pandemic are drastically unkept. And so I think that the representation from these African Americans, I think they all need to kind of be on your show, because You know, we've lost more SEPTA workers that are African American within 3 years of having a job than at any point in time. More like a 36% of folks who have started the job, thought it was a good job, and have lost the job in a 3-year period. And I think that needs to be looked at, because there's never been 36% of Caucasians who've lost a SEPTA job. So why is it that when we get the job, there's more of a strain on us to do beyond what is required of us, and we wind up losing the opportunity for livelihood? The same way with the teachers. You know, you will not identify that the teachers aren't the babysitters of your children. They're teachers for your children, and yet you got them doing everything, you know, virtually Zoom and watching the background noise and trying to tell the parents that you got to keep it down, and the parents are rude and inconsiderate of their kids' learning. And so you're asking so much of them. And these guys, and one is so pathetic, is that these folks get in the president position and they're playing golf with the owners or the high-up administrators of the companies that they are supposed to represent the union, the union constituents for. They're out there playing golf with their bad golf games, making them, letting their owners take credit off beating you because you can't play golf. You know, so you should be a better negotiator for your constituents in the union than out there on the golf course. And I think that's important, that you get them on the show, not to embarrass them, but at least say, why is it that this is going on? Why are the teachers in a quandary to go back to a building that you and I know have been unconditional since you was going to schools in Philadelphia at a time. Now all of a sudden you want them to go in there and you got these dollar store fans or Five Below fans you want to put in there.
Right.
It makes no sense.
I've seen the fans, right? Yeah, it makes no sense. Absolutely.
Ventilation system in there without it at least going through the electrical union so they can.
You know, hey Prince, I have a question too, and I'm wondering too, why isn't the so we know that there are problems with the physical spaces in a lot of these school buildings. They're old school buildings. Philadelphia has some of the oldest school buildings in the country.
Correct.
And so we know that. We've already established that, right? And so I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, so where's the conversation? See, this is where, like, the school district, you know, once again, epically fails. The superintendent epically fails at, like, thinking creatively or thinking outside of the box. I mean, where are the conversations with, you know, institutions, eds, meds, other businesses, large businesses, other places, especially with a lot of unused space that's happened, a lot of unused, very new commercial real estate that's out there. So let's have a conversation. Let's identify institutions, private and public, that we can partner with to put children in. If we really need children back in spaces, we're so concerned about putting them back in spaces, well, let's utilize those spaces. You know, let's keep them out of unkempt, unventilated. So you see what I'm saying? Like, you know, where's, I mean, because there's a lot of, like, unused commercial and institutional real estate space that has perfect ventilation systems. And why not, you know, figure out a way to funnel some students into those spaces?
Remember when the school had an issue down, I guess, South Philly, when that school, those kids couldn't use their school anymore, and
I remember
we transferred them to another school? You know, you make a good point. Let's find some alternative places that have been modernized.
Right.
Why not go to community college? You got so many of these universities.
Right. I don't understand that.
In this city. You know, why can't you go to St. Joe's? Why can't you go to LaSalle? Why can't you integrate these schools with these universities and then give them the stimulus money in order to capacitate these students? Right. And I'm going to hang up and listen to you.
Thank you for that, Prince, because I think we need to think more about that. You know, that's once again thinking more creatively, because if it's one thing that the pandemic has shown us is that when pressed to societies or systems or, you know, systems like school districts, they figure out ways to become agile. So, you know, now we figured out, like, the only thing you need really for a student in the modern American classroom, I mean, obviously the student should be there. And then they have, you know, you really don't need, you know, textbooks as much as you know, you don't need to be lugging around like 50 pounds of textbooks like we used to do back in the day and breaking our backs in backpacks back in the day. I mean, all of that is held within reliable, you know, well rammed up laptops and broadband. and put them, find, there's all sorts of unused. I mean, every time we go out and we're driving by, we see, all these stores, we all see all these commercial real estate spaces either being unused or things are shut down, things are you see for lease signs on them. So, is the school district, is the mayor, is the superintendent, are city officials, and is this happening in other urban, I don't know, and I'm going to find out, because if I find out it's happening in another city, particularly one that's similarly sized to Philadelphia, I'm going to call Philly out for it. I'm like, y'all couldn't think of this? And I can't imagine there not being any cities that have already started doing that, where they're saying, okay, we want to put our students back into safe, healthy, physical spaces. We notice that our partnering institutions, our community partners, these businesses or these nonprofit institutions have space that they're not using. Let's see if we can use that for our children or for our students, and come up with like some kind of citywide plan that, just think creatively, think innovatively, and put them in those spaces until, you figure out something about, until you fix, till you make those Philadelphia school buildings usable. I'm still also saying, as I've been saying for a while now, I like where Prince is headed with that. And once again, phone lines are open. We'd love to hear your thoughts. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. This is not just about the pandemic. This is about, once again, reopen schools. To me, that debate should be framed in the context of underperforming, abusive, and racist school systems. Full stop. Like that should be the conversation like we should be having right now. Oh, pandemic happens to be happening, so we need to take full advantage of this moment to finally press these school districts. And see, my fear here is that we're missing that moment because we're just putting pressure on, we're following the lead, or we're letting the national conversation or the public conversation follow the lead of the teachers unions. And they're focused on, and they should be, that's what teachers unions, that's what unions do. You protect your members. And they should, and they're making good points here. They're focused on, hey, we want to make sure that there are safe spaces, there are safe, healthy spaces that our members, who we have an obligation to, they have safe spaces to return to and work in. But however, this conversation needs to be framed in underperforming, dilapidated, dysfunctional, abusive, racist school systems and getting those fixed. So like, since, because I'm realizing, I'm hearing this from parents like all the time, where they're like, you know what, I'm realizing my kid's been home and they haven't been dealing with microaggressions from teachers. They haven't been dealing with being unfairly suspended. They haven't been dealing with the threat of being summarily incarcerated. They haven't been dealing with bullies, people harassing them and beating them up inside the school, the teachers ignoring that, or on the way back home from school. There's a whole bunch of things they haven't been dealing with. The whole bunch of stressors that have been totally eliminated since my child's been home. And I don't want them going back to that. I'm hearing this from parents all the time, all over the country, whether they're parents who are friends of mine or family, or people that I'm just, who reach out to me, who listen to this program, and they're like, you know what, I'm sorry, the black parents who are like, you know what, this is just so much better. It's just so much stuff I don't have to deal with anymore. Like, this pandemic has presented a new opportunity for me to look at this differently and to demand more from my school system. That's the kind of conversation we need to have. And not just a conversation, that's the kind of movement we need on this topic. Let me go to Joseph out of Massachusetts, who's calling in for a reality check. Joseph, how are you doing, sir?
Well, you get ready to go on a break, so can I do rapid fire without interruption? You mind?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, you had a caller yesterday, a female caller. She brought up a very, very important point of what's fueling this violence and this gun violence in the prison industrial complex. It's talking about the juvenile court system, and that has to do with integration. When we integrated, black people didn't feel or care for their young ones like they did because they always got to please the master, the white man. That's what W.E.B. Du Bois called a double consciousness. I'm speaking from experience. I got arrested at 13 years old trying to rob an undercover cop, 42nd Street, as a runaway kid. And all through the system, the white people, they insist I was 16 years old because I didn't have ID. They want to send me to Rikers Island. But the black people, especially a black woman, I can remember like it was yesterday, in Central Booking when they get ready to send me to Rikers Island adult jail. She said, you don't know 16 years old. You don't even have an Adam apple. And because of that, that saved me. These white people don't care for the black struggle. And then the whites, now the blacks integrated with the whites. They have no choice but to do what the whites do. The whites will protect them young juvenile whites. But black people, they don't speak up because they don't want to rock the system, like W. Du Bois called double consciousness. And that's what's happening to a lot of young black people. It's not with the juvenile court system. These white judges don't look at you as a decent human being. They look at you as a predator, as a future criminal that might rob me or might kill me or might rape my daughter. And that's where all the problem is. Until black people put some backbone on them and start speaking up for the injustices done to their own black people when they see, instead of turning the other way and preach about civil rights and human rights, and right in front of their eyes they see violation taking place and they don't speak up. What we develop is a bunch of wimps because of integration. When we were segregated, we stood up for each other. We looked out for the young generation. And I big up to that.
It's hard to disagree with you on that, Joseph. It really is. There's been a shift. There's been a big black psyche shift since the days of segregation, where there was things that we knew we had no choice but to get done. And now these days, of integration and we need to achieve a fully equitable and integrated society, because we're all under the same roof, we're all in the same space, and we got to coexist here, right? But at the same time, that shouldn't eliminate, the kind of cultural obligation, the kind of cultural protection that you're talking about. But go ahead. Still there? Okay, we gotta go to break. But no, Joseph, it's hard to disagree. I just said that yesterday. Just been a big shift. And people have got to get back to not segregation. You don't want to get back to that, or us, actively self-separating. That's not going to work. That's not sustainable. But an empowerment, a community empowerment model of collectivism, we got to get back to that. It's urgent. It's really urgent, and we've lost a lot of that. And we see that unfolding and manifesting now. Let me take a break. And then when we come back, phone lines are still open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open. Let me take a break and we'll be right back. Thanks, Joseph, for calling.
Attention WURD audience, do you know that you can get help with your PICO energy bill? PICO is here to help you with financial help through various assistance programs, including the PICO CAP program, which provides a monthly credit for eligible low-income customers based on the customer's total household gross income and energy usage. If you are experiencing financial hardship, you may qualify for the PICO CAP program.
And PICO Cares is the customer assistance and referral evaluation service designed to assist special needs, low-income customers who have a temporary personal or financial hardship that prevents the payment of your PICO energy bill. If you have a special needs child or adult in your care, your household may qualify for the CARES program.
Call 1-800-774-7040 today to see if you qualify due to an existing situation or a change in circumstances within your household. Call 1-800-774-7040 today for more information on the PICO CAP or PICO CARES program. PICO, powering our communities.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Livelihood, the new initiative from WURD Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey.
Work, 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 work. You send me happy work.
Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. Reality check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, let me go to Hakeem out of South Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Hakeem?
Yeah, hey Solomon, how you doing? Man, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing, man? Sorry.
What's up, Solomon? How you doing? Yeah, go ahead. This is all good. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, man, yeah, the school's been jacked up for years, man. Like,
Right.
saying, like, the Philadelphia school is like, we keep talking about it and talking about it, but it's like the schools is just, it's not going to get better. Hey, but I just had a question. What do you think about the impeachment of Trump, Donald Trump? What do you think?
Right. We were just talking about that earlier about the Senate conviction trials going on right now. I think you have to do it. Like, Congress has if there is anything that you impeach and convict a president for, based on what the Constitution outlines, it's this.
Hey,
I mean, I can't.
But Charles, it's already like Trump had set the stage for now any other or all Republicans or whoever running for office to just act unaccordingly and just speak without having any knowledge of anything. It's like he just set the stage for that. And because we see it with the woman senator that they stripped her of her powers. She was just like saying stuff that just because she was with the Q, what's them called, the QAnon or Q some people.
Yeah, QAnon, yeah.
Yeah, and so and she just been like really like just flying off the handle. But it's like Trump had that's how Trump was acting. So she got that from him. It's like it's like, man, I think Trump set the stage, and I believe that he set the stage for a lot of for these Republicans to just act any way they want. It just yeah, man. Hey, thanks for taking my call, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, and what's the other issue that we're not having is that, or the other issue that we're not covering as we're going through this Senate conviction trial. Speaking of Republicans, you've got now currently 165 bills being considered in 33 different state legislatures that are focused on making it harder to vote. That's happening right now in the state legislatures, and some of the worst worst offenders right now, the 3 states that are the worst offenders that are introducing the most bills that take away our right to vote, or that make it much harder to vote, which is really taking away your right to vote. Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, like some really just ugly bills. Like, so the Republicans right now in state legislatures are vexed. They are just angry and mad that there was such high voter turnout that turned the tide in the 2020 election from primarily black voters, some brown, even indigenous voters who came out strong in Arizona. And they are actively, as we speak, they are actively working. This is why I tell people, please pay attention to and please vote in your state legislative races. Pay attention to those state legislatures and what they're doing. But that is happening right now. So, we're focused on the impeachment conviction trial, and we should be. And this is what Congress should do. The House and Senate should be moving forward with this. It is laid out very explicitly in the Constitution, and it should be enforced. And it was a terrible thing, very dangerous thing that the president did, and he should be held accountable for. He should be prosecuted. I don't know why there's no one. I'm waiting. I'm just like, I've been putting out kind of queries to see if anyone's going to sue him, or try to sue him civilly, or try to pursue some other sorts of criminal charges. Especially for the deaths of police officers who had responded to that attack on the U.S. Capitol. So it's a wrong thing. They should do it, but we're not paying attention to, and there's not a whole lot of conversation about these voter suppression bills. And it's just, it's something that's that's only going to get worse if there's no change in what's happening on the state level. Let me go to Maurice out of Southwest, who's calling in for a reality check.
Hey, Charles, how you doing?
Hey, what's happening?
You're hitting on all cylinders today. I got to give you that, brother.
All right.
Let me tell you something. You mentioned something a while ago, and I want to get to it in a second. I done talked all about the murders. And when I heard about the 7 murders, I had a tear fall in my eye, because I'm doing everything I can out here in Southwest Philly. We haven't had no major murder in a couple of weeks. I think that's a victory because of some of the things we doing out here. Everybody, all the guys around here know me because I used to be a prison guard, so they usually call me by my last name. That's how I know that they're from the prison, you know, when they see me. So things are working because I just give it to them straight real. But what you brought up about the task force, we way beyond that. We need to have Curtis Jones on because he's the Philadelphia safety officer. He needs to be in that.
He's the chair, right? He's the chair of the public safety committee.
Right. He needs to be in there with the commissioner, McNesby, and the mayor. That's the task force right there. Right there. They need to put their heads together. And the mayor promised 2 Thanksgivings ago he would have a 100-day plan. And I think we're getting close to maybe 500-600 days, and he still hasn't coming up with anything. But here's the part that I did research on when you talk.
Mayor's acting like he's busy up in there having drinks with McNesby. But yeah, go ahead.
I know that, but that should be the task force if we had the proper communications out our so-called public servants, because that's what they are. And we got to remember that when they spend money, that's our money. That's not their money. And they're supposed to serve us. It's written on the side of the police car. They are public servants. Yeah. But the thing I'm going to get to that you came up that was genius that nobody jumped on when you talked about the zoning. I was paying attention, Charles.
I know you were.
Right here where I live at, Cedar Avenue, is an apartment building right across the street from the hospital, Mercy Hospital. That's just a regular row house block, right? They put 2 houses together, and they were maybe going for maybe 60,000, 80,000. But since they put them together and they put 8 apartments in it, the building is worth $2-point-something million. If that's not gentrification exploding to the left, I don't know what is. That means that everybody on that side of town, taxes are going sky high when they redo them.
Right.
The people won't be able to afford, the people that spent 30 years to pay for their house won't be afford to be able to pay the taxes because they're seniors now, they're not working, they probably are on a limited budget. You know, once you miss your taxes one year, they double with penalties the next year. And just think about 3, maybe 4 years, they can't afford to live there anymore.
Right.
That's why they set that up. That's why the Met was put on Broad Street. It wasn't put there for white people's entertainment. It was put there to clear that area out of any homeowners that had that. Because remember, they used to have a hooker hotel right on that street right there. And they cleared all that out when they redid the Met. So I'm trying to tell people when you brought up the zoning, because now they're making 2-story homes, they're allowing 3 stories to be there now. Where you used to park, they're going to start having parking permits for people. You can't even park in front of your house unless you have a parking permit. This is the things that they're doing now to clear out the area. University City used to go to 48th in Baltimore. Now it goes all the way down to 54th in Baltimore where all the black people live at. So they're going to have to be clearing out soon. And when you brought that up, I was like, why is Charles talking about this zoning? So I went, called some friends, went down City Hall, looked it up, and the 20-year plan or the 40-year plan, you know what it says? You know what it says on the side of it? It says no blacks allowed. And that's what we got to start dealing with and realize that they're putting us out of here. And when you put up the zone, a lot of people didn't catch that. But I decided to look it up and do some research. So I want to thank you, Charles, for letting me inform people.
I appreciate you raising it because last week, you know, I heard. Thank you for that too, Maurice. I'm gonna let you go, but last week we had City Council Live and we heard more public comment, so that was encouraging. From what I heard, there were no black voices commenting on the on resolution. What was it? Yeah, it was resolution 210038. And that was authorizing the creation of, this is something that City Council President Darrell Clark put into motion, authorizing the creation of a zoning code review commission to evaluate and recommend improvements to Philadelphia's zoning code, because it's definitely in need of improvements based on what Maurice just illustrated for us very vividly just now. And there were no black voices commenting on that. Folks were, you know, and I don't want people to get mad at me or angry at me. I'm not minimizing the importance of things like this. I know they're important to folks because it's, you know, all about the culture. And I want to support the culture. I'm the culture. We live the culture. But like, if you're going to go on there and you're going to publicly comment and testify about how you love the fact that the City Council is honoring the Black Children's Book Project or Book Fair, or about, you know, how, you know, you're proud of, you know, the AKAs having an AKA day in the city of Philadelphia, then I mean, you got to have your voices, you got to have your people on there giving the black perspective on how zoning is a threat to black quality of life in a place like Philadelphia. That did not happen last Thursday. And you know, when you're looking at those two levels of topics or two buckets of topics, yeah, zoning is a higher priority. Like, it's not black book fairs and ski-wee and AKAs. Like, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's pretty obvious right there. That was very disappointing. So, but it's, you know, it's not the fault of listeners. It's not even the fault of people who were testifying or providing public comment last week. It is the fault of this, like, this civic community organization, black church, black political industrial complex that has been around for so long and is vast in Philadelphia. Like, your local, that's the job of organizations like your local black church, your local urban league, your local NAACP, and other civic and community organizations that claim to represent us. They should be watching developments like this, and they should be putting out a call to action to the larger community. Black elected officials and city council should be putting out a call to action to their black constituents and saying, hey, y'all, we got a really important resolution here. We need y'all to show up and to talk to us and give your thoughts on how zoning has become a threat to your quality of life in this city. That obviously did not happen last Thursday. It's very disappointing. So it's not your fault. It's not the fault of me or Maurice or any of us who are listening into those. It's the fault of that, you know, that vast, very complex, you know, political leverage and advocacy apparatus that's been, you know, the network of folks who are in that political class, in that advocacy class, and they did not do their job. Because zoning is extremely important. It's not just important in Philly. It's important everywhere, in every urban center, especially where there's a high concentration of you know, black, Latino, and other folks and diverse populations. We just had a conversation with Pete Saunders about that yesterday, about how significant zoning is. And so it's I understand, it's a very complex and sophisticated topic. It has been deliberately staged like that, so that people gloss over it, people miss it. But it's just hugely important, and if done incorrectly, or if done in a deliberately micro-targeted and racist way, it has a tremendously negative impact on black households. So why weren't there any black voices commenting on it last week? So you know, it was adopted in council. It did pass last week. So, you know, now it's up to folks, it's up to us. Thank you, Maurice. I want to thank you for that. When the Zoning Code Review Commission is created, there needs to be a lot of black folks on that commission. And we need to be showing up to those commission hearings or whatever meetings they have when those things happen. All right, let me take a break. And when we come back, we're headed into an EcoWord segment. We'll be talking to Andres Jimenez, who's the executive director of Green 2.0. They've come out with their 4th annual transparency report card on the racial diversity in top environmental organizations. Let's see what they say, the Green 2.0. We talk to them typically. We've been following them every year since they've started this Green 2.0 report card. So real curious to see what the results have been and if there are more black and brown faces in senior executive level positions at the big environmental advocacy organizations. Let's see what Andre says. All right, we're going to make a quick break, and then we'll bring Andre on after this.
Ambition. You can't measure it, configure it, or bottle it up. But when you have it, you know it. It's that little voice in your head that says, you're not done. You want more. At WGU, we know all about ambition. We're a university that is rewriting the rules of higher education, making it more accessible, affordable, and student-focused than it's ever been. Because we know you won't rest until you reach your goals. Neither will we. WGU. Ambition never rests. Apply now at wgu.edu.
Tune in to More Than That with Gia Peppers live this Saturday, February 13th at 3 p.m. on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM, or wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode of More Than That is sponsored by General Motors, who is committed to becoming the most inclusive company in the world. Everybody in.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Celebrating Black history all day, every day. Maddie Humphreys.
You can't proclaim that people have inalienable rights from a common creator and say you own some of those people.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Philadelphia, independent Black media. Right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
All right, welcome back here on Reality Check. We're just now we're looking to bring on the next guest, Andre Jimenez, Executive Director of Green 2.0. They are scheduled to be on, so we're trying to raise them by Skype, I believe. In the meantime, we'll just go ahead and, we've got him on the phone. Sorry. Andre Jimenez is Executive Director of Green 2.0. Go to @DiverseGreen, @DiverseGreen on Twitter, on social media if you want to learn more about them. Diversegreen.org if you want to check out their latest transparency report card, the Green 2.0 transparency report card, looking at big mainstream environmental organizations, especially and other non-governmental organizations that are focused on environmental issues and things like the climate, et cetera. So it's just looking to see, is the mainstream environmental movement striving to be much more diverse and inclusive, especially at senior and executive management levels. We have Andre of Green 2.0 joining us to talk more about that and the findings of the Transparency Report Card. Andre, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, sir?
All right, good. Really appreciate this. Thanks so much, and thanks for this report. We've occasionally checked in with you all over the years because this is the fourth Transparency Report Card, and so I'm sure it was pretty tough kind of looking at 2020, especially since, for the most part, that whole year was gripped by a pandemic. But what did you learn? What did you learn in terms of, are you seeing progress with each passing year as you put this Transparency Report Card together? Are you seeing progress? Are environmental or mainstream environmental organizations becoming much better and much more intentional at hiring diverse staff, at relying on diverse perspectives and professionals and skill sets for their organizations and for these movements?
Yeah, well, first off, again, thank you for having me on. Green 2.0 is a national organization where we do, as you mentioned, look at these issues. We're the only organization of its kind, which makes it so important to continue this push to bring in people of color, not only to the table, but also making sure that once people of color are at the table, they actually have a voice. Because if they're just sitting there without a voice, it's meaningless, and that's not helping anything. To accelerate change, we need to make sure that different backgrounds, different groups are being brought, especially when you consistently hear that the people most impacted by climate change, for example, are people of color, communities of color. And so it's vital, it's critical for people of color to have a seat at the table. Now, moving on to the report card, yes, it is the fourth year. We looked at the top 40 foundations as well as the top 40 environmental organizations. And what we saw this year was that with environmental groups, we are doing better. We are slowly doing better. With foundations, as far as transparency, as far as changing of the board dynamic, we have a long way to go. And so when it came to environmental groups, for example, we had 38 out of the 40 being represented and being transparent. When we looked at foundations, we had a much, much lower number. There still needs to be a push at the foundation level, especially when foundations are the ones giving environmental groups the money that they need to work, to do the work on the ground, to work with these communities. And if we're not seeing diversity within these foundations, there's a big problem.
Yeah, that is a big problem. Because those are the money pots, right? And so I find that interesting, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes, Andre. Where it's one thing where we have people doing the work, but they got to get paid to do the work. That's one. And then, are they stewards of the funding for these efforts? Are they stewards over? And there's obviously there's a big business in providing those types of resources, that level of funding to these organizations. You have some case studies. Are there organizations that that you're able to call out, or at least able to use as an example here that illustrates or underscores that problem? Because I'm hearing that from a lot of folks where they're like saying, you know what, my environmental organization, this organization I'm working with, getting a little better here, but it seems like there's still a very severe gatekeeper mentality when it comes to the foundations, the people who hold the money, and then in terms of the kinds of decisions, right, Andre, that they're making when they disperse that money. Because we had talked to someone who did a separate report that was showing that a lot of this money, it doesn't go to, it's not going to organizations that are run by BIPOC folks or Black, Indigenous, people of color.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that we're seeing is that it's very hard. It's much harder to get these foundations to actually move at an accelerated rate to change. When it comes to environmental groups, you see that they want to be transparent and change more, but that's also because they worry about their members, the foundations. They worry about where the money is coming from. They worry about appearances. The foundations, it's much different. They don't have someone holding a checkbook over their head saying, if you're not more transparent, if you're not more open and doing better when it comes to diversity, we're going to pull funding. Foundations don't have that. And so the idea here is, how do we get foundations to actually change? How do we get them to change their dynamic of their hiring, their board practices, et cetera? And it's exactly what you just said. We have to follow the money. Recent big companies have been giving, in even the recent last year, money to nonprofit organizations to work on issues of diversity. The question that we have here at Green 2.0 is the money that's being given and the programs that are being given more financial aid and help, are those organizations run by people of color? Are those organizations helping communities of color on the ground? And that's what we're going to continue to find out moving forward. And so I think moving forward, it's less of a question of, are these foundations being transparent, and more of a question of, where's the money going, and is it going to the right places? There's nothing wrong with the big green groups, and they do some great work, but the money needs to be divided up in a fair way in which smaller organizations that are doing amazing work and run by people of color, are seeing a piece of that pie.
Yeah, yeah. How are we, and two, another thing I want to ask you here too, Andre, is how are we defining mainstream environmental organizations? Because you kind of hinted at it, because a lot of the real dirty work, the real frontline work, is being done by smaller organizations. There's a, sort of a growing industry, or growing space, if you will, of smaller organizations that are Black, Brown run, Indigenous run, who are really doing the everyday routine work and getting very little resources and pay for their time or support for their time. So it's like, how are we defining mainstream environmental organizations here? If organizations like I remember talking with a woman by the name of, I was just moderating a panel last Friday about the environment, about environmental activism and awareness, particularly in the Philadelphia region, which has its all kinds of problems with respect to environmental injustice, environmental racism, pollution, et cetera. So we're talking to Zuleen Mayfield, activist out of Chester, PA, longtime activist, is well known doing that work. And she was like, I don't even call myself an environmentalist, because the environmental organizations like Greenpeace or Sierra Club, they don't care about what we're going through here. They're more focused, they care actually more about trees and animals than they do Black people being poisoned by polluting plants. I mean, she was just she was very candid and very very straight up about that. So how are we defining a mainstream organization here?
Mainstream organization, I think, is when you look at those numbers that are coming in their budget, when you look at how big they are, when you look at how old and massive they are, I think those are your old stream organizations. When you look at some of these new groups that are, as you mentioned, smaller, run by and led by people of color, as well as staffed by people of color on the ground, those are the organizations that we are looking at and trying to make sure and working toward having them be funded. Because if we don't fund these organizations, if we're not able to continue to help them with their work on the ground, we're going to be in some major problems. And that means communities are going to be impacted, local leaders, and just the entire movement is going to be impacted if we're not helping to support these smaller organizations. You mentioned right in your backyard what's happening, and then you look at organizations like REACT out of New York that are also on the ground and doing some fantastic work, and there's examples of this all over the country. But we need to be able to support these organizations. Foundations need to be supporting, and the big greens also need to be coming in and saying, how can we help?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're talking with Andre Jimenez. He is the executive director of Green 2.0. Go to diversegreen.org to check out their latest transparency report card, Green 2.0 report that's looking at the racial makeup of the environmental movement and what that's like. What are we saying? Give us some raw numbers if you can, or top line numbers, Andre. What are we saying in terms of Black, Brown, Indigenous leadership in these organizations versus Black, Brown, Indigenous staff, right? Because what I'm saying, and which I'll be honest with you, is still infuriating when I see these nonprofit organizations who claim that they are caping hard for social justice causes, or for causes that are directly related to black, brown people or distressed communities. And like all the staff is white, all the leadership is white, but then you get like those one or two administrative people and they're black or they're Latino or whatever. Like, but there's no one in leadership. There's no one in senior leadership. I've seen some nonprofits too where they'll play this trick where like there's all white, like white heavy at the top. Just maybe like one or two black administrative assistants, like project coordinators, administrative assistants. And then like they'll have a board where like the board will be majority black, but it's an unpaid board. It's like an advisory board. I see a lot of people doing that, you know, because they're trying to say, oh, we're diverse. It's like, no, you're really not. That's an advisory board. They're unpaid. And all your leadership, they're the top paid, and it's mostly like white people. And that's a problem.
That's a huge problem. And one of the things that we talk about as well is there are people of color that are amazing and looking for work in every position. Don't just say, oh, we have a diversity opening, and so then that's where the person of color is going to come in and fill the role. There are amazing scientists, researchers, comms, executives, all over the place looking for opportunities for work. And so we must hold these organizations accountable. You asked for some figures. Our report card, as you mentioned, if you go to diversegreen.org, you'll see that for full-time, on average, they have increased, adding 6 people of color and 8 women to their staff. With senior staff, there have been an addition of 2 people in the last year overall, and with board members, organizations have added 1 new person. And so while we see that as being a positive change, it by no means and no way is where we should be. It needs to be accelerated. We need to make sure that we're holding foundations and organizations accountable. Without that, there will be no change. And we need to make sure that change is happening fast, because quite honestly, our youth are depending on it, our environment's depending on it, our communities are depending on it, and we must be working toward a solution on this. It needs to be a top priority for every foundation, organization, and anyone in the environmental movement.
Can I ask also, one thing that did strike me about this report, and I know other people are going to ask, and maybe you've already had this conversation, Andres, but you're making the distinction between people of color and white people as you're looking at the racial composition and makeup of these staffs. But I mean, what's the reasoning behind that, and not a reliance on more granular breakdowns? Like, people want to see, okay, well, how many black people are in these organizations? How many Latino people are in these organizations? You understand what I'm saying? So, not all people of color are having similar experiences or challenges with respect to racial injustice, or with respect to environmental racism, environmental injustice, or this issue. So why I noticed there's a heavy reliance on people of color of all those BIPOC populations being clustered together. And sometimes people have, whereas, we are kind of dealing with one big common enemy, which is white supremacy, still there are very different experiences in different communities. And sometimes people have issues with them being clustered together all the time.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's something that we're hearing more and more about, kind of how is it that we are defining, how is it that we're putting this information out there. From the very beginning, we've gone through GuideStar by Candid, who has helped us collect the data. They've put out the questionnaire. One of the things you'll see different about the 2021 report card that's going to be coming out obviously at the end of the year is that we are actually going to be changing the way we look at things. And so we'll be incorporating actually what you just mentioned, as well as what I mentioned earlier, which is actually less of looking at foundations and asking them to be transparent, and more about looking at where the money is actually going. So there will be some changes coming up that hopefully will make things more clear.
That would be good, yeah, because I would like to see that, because I've even given, I have this conversation regularly with pollsters and folks in the polling industry. Beyond just doing your political strategy work, and that's my field actually, and then I do this talk show for fun, but but obviously it's not just for fun, but it's a serious cause. But that is a conversation about, making sure that it's not just white, non-white. I mean, there's more granular breakdown, so we get a more textured picture of where those groups are coming from, because then we'll find like very distinct differences between, like, hey, say how the black community may be perceiving things or how they're experiencing things, and the Asian community is, right? So like there's all people of color, but then we find that, actually, by and large, the Asian community is actually doing okay economically compared to the black community. Instead of this assumption that, all people of color are doing, are dealing with wealth generation gaps.
Right?
Right. So it'll be great to see in 2021. I hope, to see with the transparency in terms of foundation funding, but also transparency in terms of, a breakdown of those people of color. Yeah, I like the top line that you show. This is people of color in these organizations. But if you guys can endeavor to do that in 2021, where it's black, brown, Asian, indigenous, that would actually be more helpful. That could give us a real good close picture into, because people could hire, an organization will hire all Asian people and just say, oh, we're good. We fixed it. We have people of color in it. It was like, well, actually, you didn't fix it, because you're focused on climate crisis, and black folks are the ones who are disproportionately impacted by those hurricanes hitting the Gulf Coast and the East Coast and all of that. And where are they? So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of make that note.
No, that's a great note, and we're always growing, we're always changing. We just changed our logo, our website. We're going to be looking at changing and making sure that our reporting moving forward is cleaner and more friendly and more helpful to the community. And so when you suggest those things, it's very helpful to us to be able to understand what folks need. That could be more helpful in our reporting.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Now, but I love these Green 2.0 reports. Overall, I've been watching them each year. Let me ask you, what's the response been? So when you're putting out these reports for several years now, I suspect this has been starting a movement, because the environmental organizations, they know that they're being watched. You guys are clocking them, so to speak. So what's the response been like to this 2020 report?
The response has been fantastic. I didn't know what to expect given everything that was happening at the beginning of the year when the report card came out. Our report card came out the exact day of then President Trump's second impeachment. And so, I woke up in the morning being like, uh-oh, what's this going to mean for kind of our coverage? And I was blown away. We had tons of coverage from anyone from NBC News to CNN, The Hill, Politico. Everyone was extremely in tune with what we were doing and excited to learn about the state of diversity. We've had The Hill, members of Congress, committees calling us, asking how they can help, which is very encouraging. And so, when we see that kind of support from organizations, I think we had somewhere around 15 organizations retweet our report card. It means that they're paying attention, that they're prioritizing, and that they're understanding that there needs to be change and that it needs to be accelerated. And so we were very encouraged by the really positive support we received during the rollout of this report card this year.
That's good. And as you're having these conversations, you're conducting these surveys with the environmental organizations, are they telling you, or are they getting back to you and saying, hey, you know what? As soon as we became diverse, actually it did make our organization better, or we were able to assess and respond to issues and problems, or advocate on these issues more effectively as a result of diversifying the staff? Are they seeing the direct benefits of making their staff much more diverse and much more inclusive?
Oh, absolutely. We've heard from WWF, Ocean Conservancy, NWF, Sierra Club, and Earth Justice, just to name a few, of the positive impact that it's having to their organization, whether it's internally with staff or with their members and volunteers. And so there is a lot of positive feedback. Folks are saying this is great, we're moving in the right direction, and bringing in all of these different backgrounds and folks from different communities is actually making us as an organization better.
All right. Hey, Andre, really appreciate your time. Andre Jimenez is the Executive Director of Green 2.0. Go to diversegreen.org. You can check out that transparency report card for 2020 that we were just talking about now, at Diverse Green on social media to reach them there. Diverse Green on Facebook as well, but at Diverse Green on Twitter, at Andres for Change on Twitter as well if you'd like to engage him there, see what he's up to. He's been joining us here on our EcoWord segment for Reality Check. Andre, keep us posted. Let us know. Would be great to, hopefully down the line do some collaboration with our EcoWord project. In fact, our environmental justice journalism initiative that we have here at WURD. So we're doing more with that. We've been expanding that over the past couple of years. So just let us know. Keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Would love to continue to work together and have us back on next year when our new report card comes out. And we'll talk about those changes.
Absolutely. We'll be in touch, man. Take care.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we are speaking of, we're going to continue that EcoWord conversation, but we have Justin Treza, who is the program director for community gardens at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, and they're talking about their new Green Resource Center at Norristown Farm Park. And, they're actually in the process of building that and promoting more education and awareness around green issues and green spaces. So we're going to take a quick break. Looking forward to that discussion too. Pennsylvania Horticultural Society's Justin Treza coming up next here on Reality Check. Really kind of EcoWord. It's EcoWord in the 11 o'clock hour. And so we'll be right back. 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Word Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365, brought to you by Southwest Leadership Academy Charter School.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of revolutionary poet Gil Scott-Heron. King Gil was born in Chicago, Illinois. His mother, Bobby Scott, was an opera singer who performed with the New York Oratorio Society. His father, Gil Heron, nicknamed the Black Arrow, was a Jamaican soccer player in the 1950s who became the first black man to play for the Celtic Football Club in Glasgow. What? Heron decided to attend Lincoln University because Langston Hughes, his most important literary influence, was an alumnus. After about 2 years at Lincoln, he took a year off to write the novels The Vulture and The Nigger Factory. Uncle Gil was very heavily influenced by the Black arts movement and the Last Poets. Although King Uncle Gil never completed his undergraduate degree, he was admitted to the writing seminars at Johns Hopkins University, where he received an MA, that's a Master of Arts, in creative writing. His music, most notably on the albums Pieces of a Man and Winter in America in the early 1970s, influenced and foreshadowed later Black music genres such as hip-hop and neo-soul. King Duke Uncle Gil is considered by many to be the first rapper/MC ever. His recording work received much critical acclaim, especially one of his best-known compositions, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised.
You will not be able to stay home, brother.
Given the political consciousness that lies at the foundation of his work, we'll say star Uncle Gil was the founder of political rap.
You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised.
So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune into The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 was brought to you by Southwest Leadership Academy Charter School and the Pennsylvania Lottery. Get to winning with Win, 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 the new scratch-off from the Pennsylvania Lottery, with top prizes of $500,000. Players must be 18 or older. Please play responsibly. Benefits older Pennsylvanians every day.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet. Hold on. Whew. But you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew. Taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Hello, I'm Jose Hernandez, and I have been using a wheelchair since my accident in 1995. I guess if I had one message for the general public, it would be that I appreciate your help. But please, ask first. I know you mean well, but I've actually got everything under control. And if I don't, I'll ask for assistance. People with disabilities just want the same respect and consideration as everyone else.
This is a message from United Spinal Association. Download our disability etiquette booklet at unitedspinal.org.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Justin Trezza is Program Director for Community Gardens at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. For more information, you can go to penhort.org. Is that correct? Do I have that correct? As far
That's
as
correct, Charles.
Yes. Penhort.org for more information there on the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, of which I talk to frequently. And so definitely looking forward to continuing to partner up with them on a number of things they're trying to roll out here in 2021, including a Green Resource Center. Real quick, Justin, it's good to see you. Thanks so much.
Likewise, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Real quick, Program Director for Community Gardens. What exactly is that? What exactly is it that you do?
Sure. So as you know, Philadelphia has a extensive and rich history of community gardens, urban agriculture, dating well before all of our time here. But in my specific role and the program Community Gardens at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, we're really focused on supporting and advancing community gardens in and around Philadelphia. We see them as vital to the civic infrastructure here in the city, not only around food sovereignty, but really just creating some resiliency in communities, local self-reliance, just a lot of those efforts.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and it's interesting too, because I remember having this conversation not too long ago with some of your colleagues and just sort of offline. You know, just that, and with a lot of people in that, the sort of reframing of the horticultural space, the horticultural movement, to find more connectivity, right, to all communities, and you know, forcing people to see it just beyond like their flower bed in the front of their house or in their backyard, right? That gardens play a very crucial, important part in the health of our spaces, in the health of our environments, the health of our living spaces, the health of our planet. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How like gardening is much more than just a hobby, and it's really kind of forcing people to see it then more than just that. Like, oh, this is just a hobby, something I like to do because it makes my house or makes my home look pretty. It's something that we have to do.
Exactly. No, you're spot on, and I think at the Horticultural Society, that's been something we've been focusing on. We call it gardening for the greater good. So really looking at those social determinants of health, you know, social cohesion, really building community. And I think we can all agree we feel vastly different when we're walking past a green space, whether it has flowers, trees versus a vacant parcel here in Philadelphia. I think, you know, it impacts us mentally, it impacts us physically. So, and there's evidence behind that. I know the University of Pennsylvania, I believe Columbia University has done studies around mental health and how green spaces do improve mental health.
Right. That's right. Improve mental health. At that same Penn study too. I don't know if it was that same Penn study or another Penn study, but I remember it was Penn doing this study where they saw violence in a particular space of blocks drop by 13% or more.
Yes.
As a result of like aggressive greening of that space, cleaning up that space and greening it. People don't realize. I mean, literally, you know, just expanding gardening in your community, in your garden, it actually saves lives. I mean, that was just saving lives in terms of, you know, people already dealing with pulmonary disease, respiratory diseases, et cetera. Saves your lives in terms of your health. It saves your lives, like, you know, especially Philly going through violence right now. Well, I mean, one cheap, very inexpensive, but effective way of mitigating that or reducing that is just planting more flowers and trees, just cleaning up spaces, greening them.
No, you're exactly right. And I mean, we have our land care program, which has a very simple remediation plan in terms of converting those vacant parcels into those, you know, into green spaces where people can come together collectively and enjoy things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, greening and plants, I mean, they are like the natural sort of drug, if you will, like without, you know, without all the controversy and, and drug wars and arrest and everything else that lead to it. I mean, it's just like it really does do wonders for the mind. It is an opiate. It's a natural and just healthy opiate. Like, you know, just when you have, and I try to be as good as I can be. I try to have a green thumb when I can with my garden, and just trying to look it over. I could do better, but that's why we talk to you guys.
Well, we all can. We all can. No one's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. I would love to do much more better. That's why I'm talking to you guys all the time. Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, for more, phsonline.org, by the way, more directly.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was going to correct that too.
That's me too. Yes, it's the email addresses that throw me off sometimes. phsonline.org for more of the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, how you can become a part of it. They've also got their 2021 flower show, Habitat, Nature's Masterpiece, coming up June 5th through 13th. So you might want to check that out. And okay, let's talk about this Green Resource Center that you're working on at Norristown Farm Park. It's slated to launch in spring 2021. What is this exactly?
Sure. So just a little back end. I think, you know, we all recognize the fact that here in Philadelphia, the rate of hunger is exorbitant. It's, you know, nationally, we unfortunately fall into the top 10 for large cities. And that issue has only been exacerbated as a result of COVID. So the idea here is, you know, for a long time now, we've supported community gardens through what we call green resource centers here in Philadelphia. These are greenhouses that we establish in partnership with local nonprofits. So we work with Bartram's Garden, Sankofa Farms, for example. We have another one in Strawberry Mansion in partnership with East Park Revitalization Alliance. And these are greenhouses where we grow out thousands of seedlings a year, organically grown, that we then distribute to over 130 plus community gardens, grow sites in and around Philadelphia. And they in return grow those seedlings out, and the harvests are then donated to whether it's local food cupboards, shared amongst neighbors, or sold at very affordable, low-cost rates to neighborhood residents. So we're taking that idea and we're going to be bringing it to Norristown, Montgomery County. As we know, Norristown too, just because it's not in Philadelphia doesn't mean it's not experiencing hunger, food insecurity, but it is, especially in Norristown, that has a high percentage of Latinx population.
Oh, wow. How are you going to be doing this, especially during pandemic? I know people are wondering, okay, how are we opening new facilities, new spaces, and there's pandemic going on, and then, worrying about infection. So obviously that question, I'm sure, has come up.
Sure, yeah. So, we're partnering with a number of different people, Montgomery County, for example, the park rangers at Farm Park. But as of right now, the idea is to build out the infrastructure there, along with a 2-acre production farm that will be managed by 2 staff people. And then we're going to be partnering with local organizations, YWCA, Tri-State Area, who's through their workforce development program, supplementing some of the food that they're going to be using in their culinary kitchen with the food that's grown at the farm. So everything is going to be donated. We don't expect initially to be working with a large number of volunteers. I mean, we want to be very careful and cognizant of that, especially with COVID, but I think over the long term, we do want to invite people to the space. Farm Park is a public space. It's got trails there. It's just a great place to bring your kids and family.
Right. The other thing, what are the educational opportunities? I mean, are you trying to sort of build that out where, I know it's going to be limited in terms of how people can get to the space, but what are we doing in terms of that? Are there any kind of special initiatives? I know a lot of students, young people, are doing remote learning, but are there any kind of special initiatives that kind of teach them the fundamentals of gardening, of food growing, of building spaces or tending to maintaining spaces like this?
So that's definitely in the works and an idea that we have. Year 2 of the project, the hope is that we're going to be bringing on some farm apprentices, ideally those coming from local high schools, and them receiving a paid internship or apprenticeship where they're learning about not just how to grow food, but food justice in general. So that's a plan. And then, of course, offering virtual workshops. This past year, like a lot of nonprofits, we had to pivot a little bit, and a lot of the hands-on workshops that we offered in the past, we brought to a virtual platform. So we definitely want to be doing that again, and offering people these workshops where they can learn how to grow food, both on their own and in conjunction with community members and other individuals.
We're talking with Justin Treza, who is the director for community gardens, program director for community gardens at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, phsonline.org for more information there. You know, it's very interesting too, as you're building this new green space, greenhouses, you know, looking at figuring out ways to creative, innovative ways to tackle food insecurity. I am seeing the growth of, there's a term for it, but I mean, it's really indoor gardening, you know, the use of LED lights. And, you know, you can actually buy for like, I mean, for anywhere from $50 to $100, you can buy like LED lighting plant kits. Like if you want to grow your own stuff, your own vegetables indoor, your own plants, you can get these special kind of LED light. I think we didn't get one. Got my daughter one, so she's using it now, and she said it does wonders. Are you all thinking about kind of advancing more into that, where you're making gardening a little bit more user-friendly and accessible? People that live in apartments, maybe people who don't have the skill set or don't have the time to do, you know, kind of the hard gardening in a yard, don't have a yard, but, you know, maybe kind of looking at this as sort of a new sort of 21st century alternative, this indoor LED lighting, or LED lighting driven gardening and planting. Is that something you all are looking at?
For sure. We've definitely offered workshops around that in the past. I think my team in particular, a lot of our work is concentrated on outdoor gardening in communal spaces, but that's not to say that we haven't offered things like that in the past. I know through our Green City Teachers program, which is housed under community gardens, which is focused around educating educators, we've done some workshops on how to create your own simple LED lighting system using PVC piping. So these are very simple things. You could go to Home Depot, spend $20-$30 on a few PVC pipes, get your LED lighting, and you're set up to grow some things in your house.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the wave of the future, and getting more people kind of into that rhythm and figuring out the way to make that more user friendly. And you know, I've been thinking more intentionally about that, Justin, too, like things like LED light driven technology, you know, to make gardening more accessible. The fruits of that gardening, or with the product of that gardening, looking at those CSA boxes, right? You know, locally grown food that people can, I think it's like community service agriculture. I think that's what that stands for, CSA. But, you know, people are doing a lot of food boxes now. And I know that there's some programs in Philly, nonprofits, who are delivering free food or locally grown food, healthy, solid food to distressed low-income families or people being hit by a pandemic. Hoping that we can expand that infrastructure in a place like Philly, where that's become more universal.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, that's one idea we have for this project in Montgomery County. Of course, it's not in Philly, but you know, talking to individuals at the county level, especially through their mental and behavioral health departments, about offering boxes where people can take these home of fresh produce, and also along with that, you know, recipes and simple ways on how they can prepare it. I think that's sometimes the challenge is, especially if someone's not accustomed to fresh produce, they get this box of goods and then they don't know what to do with it or how to use it. So really being sure that, you know, in addition to offering them the produce, we're also offering them some ideas on how they can prepare it.
Yeah. We've been talking with Justin Treza, Program Director, Community Gardens at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. Go to phsonline.org for more and to learn more about this new Garden Resource Center that they're opening up at Norristown Farm, Green Resource Center, excuse me, at Norristown Farm Park. I'm really excited about that. Can't wait to see that at some point, you know, all socially distanced, or just when, you know, finally we reach herd immunity and the apocalypse is over, and so we can just all, you know, kind of jump around in the flower garden. So definitely looking forward to it, Justin, and meeting you when that happens. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for your efforts on this.
Yes, thanks so much, Charles, and thank you for all the efforts at WURD.
Hey, we appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Take care. Be safe out there.
You too. Likewise.
All right. Let's take a break, and when we come back, phone lines are open before we head into the 12 o'clock hour. 12 o'clock hour, we'll be talking about voter suppression with Maxim Thorne. That's going to be coming up in the noon hour. Phone lines are open, however, at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations. Because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
Clark Roofing salutes Black History Month with over 30 years of quality roofing experience, providing exceptional customer service, honesty, and professionalism. For service, call 215-365-ROOF. That's 215-365-7663.
WURD Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365. Brought to you by Keystone First and Commonwealth Charter Academy.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of revolutionary poet Amiri Baraka. Part 1. Everett Leroy Jones was born in Newark, New Jersey. His father, Colt Leverett Jones, worked as a postal worker and lift operator. His mother, Anna Louise Russ, was a social worker. Jazz was something Baraka got interested in as a kid. He wanted to be just like Miles Davis. The influence of jazz can be seen throughout his work later in life. For college, he won a scholarship to Rutgers University in New Brunswick in 1951, but transferred in 1952 to Howard University. Before Amiri Baraka was Amiri Baraka, he was Leroy Jones. And at the time, Leroy moved to Manhattan, where in addition to attending Columbia University and the New School, he became a prominent artist in the Greenwich Village scene. In 1961, Leroy published his first major collection of poetry, prefaced to a 20-volume suicide note. His 1964 Obie Award-winning play, The Dutchman, which addressed racial tensions and American blacks' repressed hostility towards whites, gained him fame and acclaim. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune in to The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 was brought to you by Keystone First and Commonwealth Charter Academy. The gold standard and market leader in public K-12 cyber education is proud to celebrate and recognize Black History Month. Visit ccaeducate.me to learn more. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We was talking about gardens just a moment ago, but obviously it's cold out there. It's cold out there. And some more winter storms expected later on in the week. But that's, I know people are a little bit down with the snow and everything. You'll be a lot more down if there's a big drought as a result of very little snow in the winter, when we're supposed to get snow. So I'm actually kind of pleased about getting some snow, because it felt like it hadn't been snowing for we weren't getting any snow for like 2 or 3 years. It was weird, just where we would get like a light blanket. I just found that very weird and eerie. And just disturbing for me. Like I'm one of those types, like the seasons. Okay, like my favorite season is fall. By the way, like I love autumn. I love watching the orange tinge and browning of trees, and it's just a beautiful time. It's not too hot. It's not too cold, right? So I freak out when it's like the middle of October and it's 90 degrees outside. Like, it's unnatural. It's just unreal. So I know people are complaining about it's too much snow. Like, don't complain about the snow. Just, be thankful for what God gives us, right? For what Mother Nature gives us, and keeping the seasons intact. And it felt like for a moment there, getting all this snow, it felt like just Mother Nature was getting a little bit of a reprieve or an opportunity for reset, because especially when we went into lockdown last year, less people driving, fewer emissions. The air was a lot cleaner, notice? And so it just kind of gave nature, and then you saw folks like, little animals and stuff coming out on the street in the middle of the day, squirrels, fox, deer, and they're like, where are the humans at? And so like, all right, let's play. So I mean, it had some, obviously, lockdown had its downsides, but, that was one upside. And interestingly enough, we have like a lot of snow out there. Still, people need to be careful. Need to be careful while they're out in the snow and they're driving around and they're walking around in it, especially in snowy and icy conditions. But that all becomes, that melts and that becomes water that supplies water supply systems. But when we don't have snow, then we have low water levels and we have drought. And then, that's not good ever. So and it's also encouraging to see like places out west where they've been going through serious drought, but then they have been having rain and snow and, so it's raising those water totals. So, everything, there's a reason for all of this, why you have those natural types of occurrences and phenomena, and we need to like respect that. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Good morning to Malcolm White. What's happening? Watching and listening from Westmount Aries. So while we're still in morning, Harold Sprittle, good morning. Haven't seen your name before, sir. So good morning. Thanks for listening. Shannon Nicholson, what's happening? She's like, what's up, cuz? What's up back at you? Shirley J. Carter, good morning. Phyllis Williams, good morning. Really appreciate that. Joey Dixon, peace and jazz back at you as well. Andre Terry, good morning to you. Phyllis Williams, WURD is a Black-owned radio station with host listeners who are concerned with all issues and should be recognized. Police Commissioner Outlaw, along with other officials, should set aside a little time out of their schedule and voice our concerns. Yes, she should. And it goes back to, I've always said, I want the police commissioner to succeed. I want the police commissioner to succeed. I don't want the police commissioner to fail. There may be some folks out there. In fact, there are some folks out there that want to see the police commissioner fail for one political reason or another. I want the police commissioner to succeed, and we all have a personal vested interest in that because we want the city to be much safer, and that's what police are supposed to do. So that's their job. But she's got to do better with the communications. I've always said that. I've written about it. She's obviously not heeding that. It's nothing personal against her, but, the communications aspect of her crime fighting has got to be a little bit better, and it could actually help her in many ways. And so what I'm hearing from various people is she's not doing that at an optimal level like she should or like she could be. And it's easy to retool. Like, I'm sort of giving you free advice here, Commissioner, here. Like with, people get paid to give advice for, like, you need to do better with your strategic communications apparatus. But I understand, you're following the lead of your boss and you have a mayor that frankly does not care that so many people are getting shot and killed and no, he really doesn't. He's not really he's not busting a tear at all that this is happening in his city, in his hometown. So, you're probably like subconsciously don't even realize it. Well, my boss don't care. Like, how much sweat should I put into this? It all kind of, it's what sort of tone you're getting from the top. Good morning to you, Koos, Ms. Allen. Thanks for listening in. 900 Black and brown people have died in the prison system in 1 year, 157 people in Philadelphia in a year. In 2 months, I pray God keep us covered in the blood God knows we need. Okay, I'm trying to follow you, Ms. Allen. We are intelligent, we are educated, we have our own business, just like they did that for Wall Street and everything else that I answered. So Ms. Allen's very active here, and she's delivering it on Facebook Live here today. I appreciate that. I can't go through all your comments, Ms. Allen, but I appreciate them, and I'm feeling them. They're not going to open our schools. Is it any way possible that we had vacant buildings that we're not using to set up just for family members to get out and teach the children in public? We were just talking about that earlier. Thanks for raising that too. And I haven't found, I was trying to do some research in between breaks or between conversations to see if there are schools. I haven't found anything yet, but if there are schools. But I had saw a couple of op-eds out there, like including one in Fast Company, a major magazine, where the expert is saying, hey, we got all these open, school districts need to look at this, cities need to look at, utilizing these empty office spaces, which are already modernized, have the needed or essential ventilation systems, et cetera. They're not old buildings. School districts should be looking into that, as, or kind of looking at some sort of citywide system using vacant spaces. Just the things to me that seem like low-hanging fruit. And I wonder if people have been having those, conversations within the school district. For those of you, there are people that are trying to figure out how to reach out to Justin Treza, who's the program director for community gardens at Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. I don't have a direct line for him at the moment. Go to phsonline.org. That's the first stop to reach him. I think one other way, go to phsonline.org. I'm going there right now and seeing how we can contact them, right? So phsonline.org. You can also call their main office and call for him, the Community Gardens Program, 215-988-8800. That's 215-988-8800. They are open now. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So they're probably operating virtually, right? And that's the most direct information I have for Justin Treza. I'm sure you'd be very happy to hear from folks, and very pleased that that conversation resonated with people. And so I don't have anything else for you as far as direct information, but you can once again go to phsonline.org. I see Justin's bio, but he's the director of garden programs. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-36109. Oh, you're welcome. That was a caller. Someone called in just specifically for that information. So I'll let them know we sent you. Also, don't forget, okay, so we got City Council Live tomorrow, right? Got City Council Live. So I'm sure there are people out there who are eager to offer public comment. So to do that, go to phlcouncil.com for more information to find out how to offer public comment at council hearings. And so you need to do that by 3 p.m. today. 3 p.m. today. Call 215-686-3406 and give your full name, a callback number. You can be reached. Identify the bill number. It's focused on the bill number of resolution. This is not a freestyle session. These are very organized, and they have to focus on bills. I had someone who was saying, no, everybody should just have a chance to just talk about whatever they want under the sun during City Council public comment period. This is one thing I happen to agree with City Council on. No, they should not. that would be a hot mess. And really, that's not doing anyone any good, right? That's not really benefiting anyone. Do the research. Go to phlcouncil.com. Look on the agenda. Look at the bills that they're talking about, or that they're scheduled to talk about in City Council tomorrow. And then talk on that bill. Speak, talk about what concerns you or what's moving you or what you think your community is impacted by. So, we have the City Council tomorrow of the whole. We can go on the agenda now and see. But yeah, call today by 3 p.m. Because look what happens. If we had just everyone calling in, we'd miss things like the zoning issue that's so important. But 215-686-3406, and what's on the calendar now? We still have this bill by Councilwoman Cindy Bass. She's calling on Comcast Spectator to reconsider his naming rights agreement with Wells Fargo. Councilmember Gim has a resolution calling on the Pennsylvania General Assembly to end the use of taxpayer funds to pay for cyber charter education when local school districts offer their own full-time cyber school programs. Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson has a resolution calling on the City of Philadelphia Board of Pensions and Retirement to adopt environmental social governance criteria and request and disclose climate risk information from all relevant parties. So that's to make sure like the Philly Board of Pensions, like pensions aren't investing in industries that are not climate friendly, that are actually anti-planet. So there's a whole bunch there, so you can learn more about that. Let me go to the phone lines. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Also, don't forget about joining for your 4WURD membership today. During Black History Month, we do it 365 days a year here at WURD, supporting Black history, supporting also Black community empowerment and movement. So go to wordradio.com/join now, wordradio.com/join now, and sign up for your 4WURD membership today. Let them know that Reality Check is your favorite show on WURD. So use the word check in the checkout counter to do that while you apply for or you sign up for your 4WURD membership or renew it today. Thank you for that too, by the way. So I know I can hear you now. I feel you. I can hear the hands feverishly typing and putting in check, right? Check for Reality Check. That's right. And then support Black media. It's all for a good cause. We appreciate you. Wordradio.com/join now. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to head into the noon hour. Maxim Thorne of the Andrew Goodman Foundation, also a former Yale law lecturer, is going to join us and talk about voter suppression. There's just I had talked about that earlier. You've got this huge wave of voter suppression bills that are being introduced across the country, and we need to talk about it. Last count, 165 different voter suppression bills in 33 states being introduced, and the biggest offenders, the highest rates of voter suppression bills being introduced are in Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Yeah, Pennsylvania is on that top 3 list. So we need to talk about that. Maxim Thorne coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Did you know you can catch the flu and COVID-19 at the same time or even back to back? Don't risk catching the flu during the COVID-19 pandemic. The flu shot is a safe and effective way of reducing your chances of catching the flu or spreading it to others. And the flu shot helps protect you and your community from the worst effects of the flu. Don't say, I should have got my flu shot. Call your doctor or visit your pharmacist and get your flu shot today.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet, hold on. Whew, but you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew, taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
Okay, welcome back. Joining us now is Maxim Thorne, lawyer, Maxim Thorne Esquire. He is a managing director of the Andrew Goodman Foundation, also former Yale law lecturer and senior vice president at the NAACP. He's joining us now by Skype to talk about voter suppression. Obviously a lot been happening in Washington and a lot happening in the Senate right now on Capitol Hill. We're actually broadcasting to you live from the nation's capital, but we cannot forget about these. We have to pay more attention to. We're going to have to spotlight more aggressively now these voter suppression bills that are being introduced in the state legislatures. Last count, about 165, 166 now voter suppression bills in 33 states. It's amazing and just infuriating, and it's very scary. So by the time we get to the next election, we're going to have people potentially having a much harder time just exercising a very basic right, which is to vote. Maxim, talk about that. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It is an unbelievable roller coaster from 2020 that continues through to today. If you think about what you just said, just think about it. We are about 5 times more voter restrictive bills being introduced across the country than at the same period by this date last year. It is as if the success and the energy of getting people to turn up in a pandemic at risk of their very lives is to be countered by how can we block them? And this is, of course, specifically targeted at young people and youth of color and people of color generally. Make no mistake, if you look at where you have the greatest number of restrictive bills, they are where people of color and youth of color turned out significantly, and where they made a difference, like Georgia, like Arizona, like Wisconsin and Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Horrific stuff that we're seeing across the country. And as you said, we really have to counter this and be really watchful. In these, what are considered off years, there is no off year when it comes to voter suppression.
Right.
And laying the groundwork and strategy of how we will keep people from our communities from voting.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I frankly, I have to put this out here. I don't know how the people, Republicans, and I know Andrew Goodman, I know it's nonpartisan, but I can say this. I'm taking a little host prerogative here, but it just really has me vexed, Maxim. I don't know how Republicans who are introducing these bills can live with themselves. I don't want to hear anything about being fair and we're living by principles of merit. This is just cheating. This is just outright. I mean, there's no other way. This is cheating. It's cheating, and then you're totally trampling on people's rights while you're doing it, while at it. And it's have you had? I'd like to ask you too. I mean, as someone who's on the front line of that struggle against voter suppression, I mean, have you had direct conversations with some of these people who are introducing these bills to get a sense of what's their rationale for doing this?
Charles, one of the greatest things of the Andrew Goodman Foundation is that we are now reaching just over 2 million young people on 93 campuses in 46 states and DC who are, like myself, having conversations with elected officials and people in their community and leaders and persons of influence. And what we're hearing, there's a change in this country. There's a change in this country that we should be frightened, which is the barefaced racism.
Yeah.
There used to be an attempt at some sort of smoke screen, but now it is blatant that the reason for this is to prevent. It is racist. It is to prevent people of color, Black people, Native peoples, Latinx people, etc., from voting. And that kind of barefaced racism and honesty, if you will, is new. But it also tells you that there is a movement afoot to unleash the kind of atmosphere of fear and tribalism based on race, in large part, that we haven't seen in a generation. And so, yes, people are saying these things, but again, you wouldn't have heard me say and speak in the way that I'm speaking last year, year before last, and in the past. But there is no question these are racist and dangerous lies that support the attempts to restrict and undermine our capacity to vote.
Yeah, it's very. That's the other part of it that's very significant is how it's, before, right, like when we were going through these battles for voting rights back in the 50s and the 60s, going back, say, 50, 60 years or more, it was, you didn't have this, you didn't have QAnon, you didn't have the pernicious spread of, baseless lies and infodemic that was occurring. Well, on some levels you did, because then there would be all these stereotypes and myths around Black people. But it was just very, very bold through cross burnings, people being unapologetic. But it's a very kind of right, Maxim? It's a very fascinating way how people have sort of fashioned themselves or clothed themselves in this, or bathed themselves in this kind of racism. It's very subtle, but at the same time very blatant, right? Because it's not people in hoods. They figured out a very sophisticated way of dressing all of this to make it seem like, oh, it's not racist. I'm not racist. I'm just having concerns about the legitimacy of this election, right? So before, 60 years ago, they would just say, hey, you know what? I'm just trying to keep these Negroes from the polls. Now, fast forward 60 years later, oh, I have problems with the legitimate, because they know it's very impolite. It's impolitic to talk about, to be calling them outside their name or calling them the N-word. They know it's a very, very unclassy way of going about that.
You bring to memory, and I hope people will look this up, the senator from Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know this, Charles, but he is voting for the big lie that we had this massive voter suppression and voter fraud in this country, all of which was nonsense. Mm-hmm. And also to overturn the election in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Wisconsin, etc. And then his constituents confronted him. Mm-hmm. And this is, in fact, racist. And what does he do? And to his credit, in a very he apologized. He apologized to the people in West Tulsa.
Right.
Right? Saying, I didn't know that was going to be taken as an attack on the African-American vote.
He didn't know, right?
But it certainly is.
I saw that letter, right? I saw he had a response letter laid out.
Yes. So I do not. They know what they're doing, Charles. It is not some investment in integrity. This is actually the anti-integrity movement. Mm-hmm. This is about how do we take away the franchise from as many people who are people of color, who are young, who they don't think would vote for them. And by the way, don't forget that the census will now release information to these states, and we're looking at this very closely in all of the states. And they're going to be using this information to gerrymander. The 165 bills that you refer to doesn't include the gerrymandering.
No.
About to sweep the whole country. And again, to structurally disenfranchise us in a way that I think we need to be prepared for. We need to be and that's why I'm so appreciative of you continuing these conversations, because people need to understand the very specific things like proposals that you can't have, you can't use COVID-19 in fear of being infected as an excuse for absentee, or you need an excuse, period, to be able to vote absentee, and all these other things that we should in fact be expanding, not retracting. That we've learned from the pandemic year, the horrific pandemic year. They're actually trying to make it even more difficult going forward.
What's funny too is that they're expending a lot of energy and they're putting a lot of sweat into this and being very creative to come up with these voter suppression bills and policies. It's just amazing to watch, because it takes a lot of time to sort of figure out these very intricate schemes, right, to take away people's right to vote. That takes a lot of intellect. That takes a lot of brain power. It takes a lot of long nights. How can I find a really slick, clever way to keep people from the polls? I mean, imagine if they use that energy to just do their work. Actually do the work of the state, especially in the middle of a pandemic. That's the other thing. What are the more egregious forms in your mind, Maxim, of legislation that's out there? Looking at those 33 states, I know the top kind of offenders right now, or they're sort of like ranked at the top of their conference if we're talking in terms of professional sports: Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia. But what are you saying in those states or other states that are some of the most egregious or insane, ridiculous forms of voter suppression out there right now?
Yeah. So, off the top of my head, we have 14 bills that want to remove, that would require an excuse for you to be able to vote absentee. It's like the old days when you had to have an excuse to be able to get divorced. And there are states that are going to reject fear for COVID-19 infection as an excuse, and we're seeing this in Arizona, Georgia, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and elsewhere. Pennsylvania wants to eliminate the permanent early voter list. So so I vote early. I recommend everyone vote early. Get it out there and get it. So the fact if someone is trying to remove you, you have notice and you can fight it before that election day. They're trying to remove permanent early voting lists, which means that you have to keep reapplying and reapplying, and they have every other hurdle they could set up to stop you from being able to vote early. And part of the reason we have been very successful in enfranchising the Black community and others is because we've gotten people to vote early. And so they've recognized this, and then they're trying to cut back on early voting and any kind of early voting that's possible. Florida wants to reduce the length of time a voter can remain on the absentee list. So in New Jersey, where I live, and by the way, there's some positive things I want to talk about. So, we have not been sitting on our butts doing nothing. We've also been introducing pro-voting rights, pro-enfranchisement legislation. But in New Jersey, we're seeing efforts to make it easier for officials to remove voters from the permanent absentee list, and that's happening in New York and New Jersey. So they are people, and that's why, to your point earlier, we have to be vigilant. And I think that what you pointed out, we need to accept some amount of blame in the sense that these people have been strategizing. They have been using all of their gray cells in efforts to be racist and expand voter suppression. We should have been fighting at every moment those things. I know for myself, the Andrew Goodman Foundation, which is focused on youth voting rights, it was virtually impossible to get the attention of funders, of stakeholders, of politicians of all stripes to take this seriously, that they were gerrymandering college campuses, that they were setting up voter ID laws specifically targeting young people, that they were doing everything possible so that young people could not vote. It took years, and until, frankly, last year, where we were able to get a New York Times article to talk about this massive movement against young people's voting rights, that we finally caught the attention. And the massive turnout by young people made all the difference in many key states. So we need to be vigilant. They are doing it at an exponential rate. Remember, I mentioned just by February 3rd, they have introduced 5 times more voter suppression legislation than they did last year at this time. And last year, they were doing everything they can and could to stop us from voting.
Wow. Well, it's the big issue here too. Well, so there's 2 big challenges because it's all about awareness, and the more awareness we put around this, and the more we spotlight this, right, Maxim, the more progress we make in stopping it. It's really incumbent upon people who are registered Republicans or independents who are serial Republican voters. You really need to demand from your Republican elected officials to stop this, to cut it out. So that's one. But these are very also intricate and sophisticated, complex topics, and it's deliberately like that, to really get people frustrated. And it's like, so how do we have that conversation? How do you do it, Maxim, where you try to simplify this conversation or bite-size it in such a way that the public, even like the listening audience now, they know, I talk all the time about voting. All last year, voting was my thing. I was even, people call in and they talk about, well, I don't know about not voting. I had zero, it was like a zero tolerance zone for that. Like I would just, fam, we got to hang up the phone, sorry, which I normally don't do on this program, but I'm like, no, we're not doing that. We're not entertaining that in 2020. But how do you do that? How do we try to have these, like even when you talked about gerrymandering, it's a very sophisticated, complex topic, and people get frustrated with it. They hear us talking kind of high level, and they feel like it's above them. So how do we do that? How do we help people make that connection that, hey, this is a really serious quality of life issue here? The more they take away your right to vote, the more they're taking away your right to have a decent, productive, safe quality of life, racist-free quality of life.
Stories.
Yeah.
I think that we need to push back as people who are advocates and activists against jargon. And I think we have an opportunity here, Charles, because of the facts of last year and the horrific insurrection and murders of January 6th. There is an awakening. The knee on the neck of George Floyd that killed him. It was so dramatically more powerful and horrific than Colin Kaepernick's knee. trying to bring attention years ago to what we're experiencing about that. And so there is an awakening and I think a realization. Hopefully, the impeachment trial in the Senate will get the national attention to what it is that is dangerous about this. So when we talk about the technicalities and the complexities, there are things that are not complex. For example, New Hampshire wants to permit more observers who can get into the polling site to observe people voting. Now, you know, and I know, and anyone else who's black knows, this is about voter intimidation. And we need to point this out. This is about terrifying people and intimidating young people and people from voting. But the point of the storytelling is Tamia, who was one of our ambassadors in Wisconsin. And she was able, by the way, to get an absentee vote, but her father, who suffers from, had a cardiac incident, had undergone surgery, and her extended family they did not. And they were forced in this ridiculous scenario to go out in person because Wisconsin was not going to move the timeline. We're not going to expand absentee voting. We're going to do everything they could, and they closed. Remember, in Milwaukee, where her family lives, and where she went when she couldn't stay on campus at the Madison campus, she went back home. They normally have 140 polling sites. They reduced it to 5, Charles, 5, in a pandemic, and told them they had to vote in person. Those are terrifying things to anyone of conscience or anyone just thinking about themselves and their family. And I think if you see the reality, it's not so complicated because we know what it's like to get infected. And we have, in our community, we know what it's like to have been killed by this virus and by deliberate policies that target us. And so I think that we can demystify, we can make this really simple. They're trying to intimidate us. They're trying to have us die by being infected, trying to use little things that we understand that we wouldn't use in any context, like making us pay for stamps to vote. So think about it this way, Charles. Imagine if when you went to your polling site, if you were voting in person, when you got to the door, you had to put in a token, like you put a token in to take the bus. And when you got into the machine or the ballot, you had to pay another 50 cents. We wouldn't know that was a poll tax, right? That was outrageous. But that's exactly what states have done and are trying to even do more in making you pay to apply for an absentee ballot, and then making you pay to mail that ballot when you receive it. And so these are built-in poll tax, and I think we need to translate it and explain what gerrymandering on a college campus means. When I divided, when these and again, there's just a fact, when Republican legislators, for the most part, have imposed these kind of racist gerrymandering tactics, they've also done this on college campuses. It means that I've split college campuses in 4, so that if I'm a fresh person, I'm a first-year student, and I lived in dorm A, and next year they moved me to dorm B, which is right next door. But that dividing street, they didn't tell me that when I move next door, I can't vote in the next election because I have to re-register. That's a different election zone. So we've seen this in Louisiana. Louisiana State is divided into 4. We've even seen this in New Jersey, Montclair State, divided into 3. And that until Mikey Sherrill won, they hadn't had a Democratic elected official in and this is northern New Jersey, in decades. Wow. And so it is very special. Imagine if when I move next door, I move across the street, I have to, and kids, busy young people who are trying to study and maintain their activity are deliberately having these obstacles set up by moving across the street, being assigned to a different dorm, and all of a sudden they cannot vote because they didn't know they had to re-register to vote the next time.
Wow, we're going to Maxim Thorne. Yeah, the stories are what's going to have to do it, too. We got to tell more of them and just continue to ring the alarm bells, which we will. Maxim, it's really good to see you. Good to have you on to talk with you. We've been talking about voter suppression with Andrew Goodman Foundation Managing Director, Maxim Thorne. You've been watching him here live on Reality Check on WURD TV. Go to andrewgoodman.org for more information at Maxim Thorne. On social media, on Twitter, if you'd like to engage him there, find out what he's up to. He's been joining us here on Reality Check. We have to have him back on more often, especially as we're going through these state legislative sessions and trying to push back against voter suppression, just try to eliminate this at all. So definitely we'll stay in touch, Maxim. Thanks for this work. Keep it up.
Thank you, Charles.
All right. Be safe. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, we get into our livelihood segment with our digital lifestyle expert, Stephanie Humphrey. She's coming up next here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Oh, yeah, phone lines are open, too, with Stephanie, by the way, in case you have questions about the digital space and digital etiquette and about how to better manage your social media. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Are you tired of eating the same thing day after day? Is ordering takeout starting to get a little old? If so, then give Premium Nutrition Meals a try. With Premium Nutrition Meals, you get to select new entrees each week from several different menus, all chef-crafted, freshly prepared, and delivered right to your door. Just go to PremiumNutritionMeals.com to order to earn rewards today. WURD listeners receive $10 off orders of 6 meals or more. Enter code PREMIUMWURD at checkout.
WURD Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365. Brought to you by Pico and JD's Auto Body.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of Academy Award-winning production designer Hannah Beachler. Hannah Beachler is an American production designer. Madam Beachler grew up in Centerville, Ohio, and graduated from the University of Cincinnati, where she studied fashion design. Then she attended Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, where she studied film. Her first major collab was with the celebrated director Ryan Coogler on 2013's Fruitvale Station. Coogler later hired her to work as his production designer on Creed, and then later on, Black Panther. Hannah's set design work can also be seen in the Miles Davis biopic Miles Ahead and for the film Moonlight. While we could say her coup de production gras was her Afrofuturist design direction swag in Black Panther, let us all bow down and agree that her design work for Beyoncé's 2016 TV special and visual album Lemonade is the visual holy grail. Of course, now she's an Academy Award winner and the first African-American woman to be nominated or to win an Oscar for Best Production Design. Okay? We honor the art and artistry of star cousin Hannah Beachler. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune in to The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 is brought to you by Pico, powering communities, and JD's Auto Body and Painting for all your auto body and detailing needs. WURD Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365, brought to you by Keystone First and Commonwealth Charter Academy.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of revolutionary poet Amiri Baraka. Part 1. Everett Leroy Jones was born in Newark, New Jersey. His father, Colt Leverett Jones, worked as a postal worker and lift operator. His mother, Anna Louise Russ, was a social worker. Jazz was something Baraka got interested in as a kid. He wanted to be just like Miles Davis. The influence of jazz can be seen throughout his work later in life. For college, he won a scholarship to Rutgers University in New Brunswick in 1951, but transferred in 1952 to Howard University. Before Amiri Baraka was Amiri Baraka, he was Leroy Jones. And at the time, Leroy moved to Manhattan, where in addition to attending Columbia University and the New School, he became a prominent artist in the Greenwich Village scene. In 1961, Leroy published his first major collection of poetry, preface to a 20-volume suicide note. His 1964 Obie Award-winning play, The Dutchman, which addressed racial tensions and American blacks' repressed hostility towards whites, gained him fame and acclaim. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune in to The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 was brought to you by Keystone First and Commonwealth Charter Academy. The gold standard and market leader in public K-12 cyber education is proud to celebrate and recognize Black History Month. Visit ccaeducate.me to learn more. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. We are live at 96.1 FM, 900 AM in Philly proper. But beyond Philly proper, Delaware Valley, we are throughout the nation, throughout the world at WURDradio.com and WURD TV and WURD app for those of you who do have it. Changes coming soon with respect to that, by the way. I'm Charles Ellison. I'm at Ellison Report on Twitter.com, hashtag Reality Check. Stephanie Humphrey is back with us for our frequent livelihood segment where we talk about the digital lifestyle and digital etiquette and all things social media and elsewhere and otherwise. You also see her occasionally on Good Morning America on ABC. She's the technology lifestyle, digital lifestyle expert there. But she joins us. She graces us with her presence every couple of weeks here on Reality Check. Stephanie, good to see you.
Good to be here.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. You know, I was real curious about, we were going to talk about this last time when you had you on, but we ran out of time. What are the big significant trends that you're seeing in the digital social media space for 2021?
So social media wise, live streaming is still going to be huge right now. Everybody's going live on IG, going live on Facebook, going live wherever they can. That's going to be huge. It's still in beta, but the buzz is huge around an app called Clubhouse, and the idea that you have this platform for real-time conversation with people that is audio only. So that model is already being replicated. Twitter has an app feature called Spaces now that does the same thing, and Mark Cuban is actually launching a platform called Fireside that will also do the same thing, but have some monetization built in. So that Clubhouse model of audio conversation that goes away after the conversation is over will continue to gain popularity. Privacy is always a consideration, but I think for us in particular, as creators of color, I think there may be a reckoning coming, because we're seeing creators being very, very vocal about the way the platforms use and manipulate the content, the artificial intelligence that goes in it, the algorithm, as they say. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of equity in AI, in artificial intelligence, we get this year.
Yeah, I mean, because we're very heavy users of social media and digital tools, digital communication tools. Among the most heaviest users of that, we were also. I mean, I was having but conversation with someone earlier this morning about how Black communities were kind of like the original social media communities in some respects. Maybe if we go back to the days of Black Planet, right? And but that was before, that was pre-Twitter, pre-Facebook, all of that, and so Black folks very active and vocal and very eloquent and literate in these digital spaces before all of this other stuff came along. And so it's just kind of fascinating to see. So they don't want to risk the ire of Black users. They have to figure this out.
They're going to have to figure it out. And it'll be interesting to see. You mentioned Black Planet. It'll be interesting to see if another Black-owned platform kind of rises to the top or uses this as an opportunity.
Do you see that, like, more sort of segregation, okay, so and I'm not bothered by it. It's kind of like, back in high school and the white kids get really irritated when all the Black kids sit at the same lunch table. But it's like, it's not against y'all. Like, it's just, we're just being familiar.
And that's the thing. If you're not
in the digital space,
honored and valued in these digital spaces, and this is the way some people make their money and earn their living. And if you're not promoting my content to the point where I can earn a living, and you're deliberately, or your algorithm is accidentally suppressing my content so that it doesn't get exposed to a wide enough range of viewers, and I can't go to this brand and ask for this partnership or this influencer package, then maybe I have to find my own thing that will allow me to do that and earn a living and be fruitful and multiply. Sometimes you gotta, people don't realize what they have until it's gone sometimes.
Right. And people being in just spaces that are comfortable for them and or familiar for them. It's nothing against other groups, but especially, I mean, a lot of it's like self-protection, because there's just the trauma of being on a platform like a Facebook and Twitter, and you're being attacked by people who are throwing.
And I literally just read an article before I came on about how Clubhouse you know, their lack of moderation has made it an unsafe space for Black women specifically. So, you know, these platforms have a long way to go before we can fully call them integrated. You know, they're not really truly integrated in the sense that everybody is getting a fair shake and that everybody's concerns around safety are being taken seriously.
It's funny how they still don't learn, right? Like, as they develop these technologies, because we keep telling them, we keep having these conversations with them. Hey, you know, coding young white kid who learned it in their garage in their parents' house, and now, you know, you're kind of like, you've come up in the world and you're building these platforms for us. Can you keep us in mind? Like, we've been having these conversations for years.
Forever, since the beginning, And yeah, so I think it may take, you know, a serious platform contender created by a person of color to do it, and we would need all of our I don't know what you want to call them, all of our wealthy Black folks, if you will, to stand behind this and put the money, because that's the thing. It always comes down to the dollars and cents, and platforms like that don't get the same type of funding. I mean, Clubhouse was just valued at $1 billion, and they have no sort of monetization strategy at all just yet. And so, you know, we don't get that sort of valuation. We don't get the sort of impouring and influx of capital that these other platforms get. But if we could get that, if we could get, you know, some Black folks with a couple dollars to really come together make that significant investment in a platform, we could take it over.
Right. We're talking with Stephanie Humphrey, technology and digital lifestyle expert, joining us here for our livelihood segment, our frequent regular livelihood segment here on Reality Check WURD. Speaking of revenue, right, and valuation, Twitter was reportedly considering a subscription model. I know a lot of people who realize that the conversation is happening internally within Twitter, and the dime was dropped about that, hey, you know, we may start charging a fee for people to use Twitter. Have you heard about that? Talk a little bit about that and what that means.
Yeah, I just tweeted something about that yesterday, and I tweeted it, the irony there. But it would be for, I don't know that it would be a whole entire pay-to-play model where you'd have to pay to use Twitter. They would have features that would be on a different tier. So they own a platform called TweetDeck that allows you to automate a lot of your Twitter posts and, you know, curate your feeds the way you want it. They would, you know, maybe they charge for that feature, or you know, a lot of people have been asking for an edit button on Twitter since the platform was created. They may not necessarily add that, but they'd add a way to undo an old tweet or undo a tweet before, you know, after you sent it, if you realize maybe I shouldn't have sent this. So maybe that's a feature you'd have to pay for, you know, for brands and influencers and things like that. Maybe some of the analytics that you can get, you'd have to pay for some of those more in-depth analytics around how your feed is doing. So it would be sort of a feature-based thing. And it's funny, I was thinking about it because I asked the question on my Instagram, and everybody in the comments, I wouldn't pay, I'd never pay. What I would pay for on Twitter specifically is the ability to curate other media sources. So right now I'm subscribed to the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Wired, you know, all these different, you know, and you go on Twitter because that really is my primary news gathering source at this point. But you look at these articles and they're behind paywalls. They're all behind the paywall. And if you're not subscribed to that particular platform, you can't do it. If Twitter could come up with an agreement with these media platforms, these media entities, to where if I pay Twitter, you know, $60 a year, I have access to all of these media platforms without having to worry about those paywalls. If I access them through Twitter, I would pay for that. I
might pay for that too, because I have all these like multiple digital subscriptions, micro subscriptions, and it is a little frustrating, you know, like New York Times, Washington Post, Economist. I've got subscriptions. I know, like I'm seeing them coming out of my bank account, like little, you know, $1 here, $1 there, and I'm like, it adds up. And that's the thing. But we are like in a micro subscription age. Like that's the new thing. And Twitter, they rolled out, or a founder of Twitter rolled out Substack, which we use here at Reality Check to create the B-Note, the companion magazine to this, and love the model. But it's, you know, it's based on, you know, you have people purchasing if they want to, opting into subscriptions. But after a while, like, how long-term or sustainable is that model if anyone, like even like my teenage daughter in her room can charge a subscription? I mean, after a while, how many people can you? We're running out of people to do subscriptions.
They were going to add tipping as a feature as well. So for certain creators who's kind of almost like a sort of Patreon model, if you will, but a way for creators to monetize their content. So we'll see what happens. I just think when people hear pay, you know, they just immediately get turned off, especially considering all of the data that Twitter and other social media platforms already collect from us for free and sell. You know, it's like, now you want me to pay for the privilege of giving you my data so you can sell it. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, they got to figure that out, because I think the clock is ticking a little bit on that.
Yeah.
I think it's time. Yeah. So right now, we got to do what we have to do, particularly those of us in the professions that we're in. Like, I gotta subscribe. I gotta subscribe to Philly Inquirer. I gotta subscribe to Washington Post. Like, if I don't, I can't keep track of stuff. I can't get access to that kind of content and then be able to have a conversation with everyone else here. Let me go to Lynn out of Darby, Stephanie. She did have a quick question for you regarding technology, digital lifestyle. Lynn, how are you doing? Thanks for listening.
I'm fine. Hi, Charles. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, Lynn.
I had a question. Hi. I had a question. Charles does on Thursday the city council meetings, and he was disappointed that people didn't ask questions. And I was trying to think of a way. I'm in Darby, but for like the city, I'm asking you, Stephanie, how can we get a better way of getting the public to ask questions? Like, could we go to the city ward leaders, the block captains, to get the
well, you know, I'll say this, Lynn. So I don't want to put Stephanie too much on the spot here, because, you know, she oversees technology. That's her wheelhouse, and that's her. I like the question though, Lynn. I do. It does lead to a bigger question about. But go ahead, Stephanie. Yeah.
Well, because I know a lot of platforms that do sort of. What is the word I'm looking for? It'll come to me. Do sort of open forum sort of style things. They do ask for questions in advance, and that could literally be something as simple as a Google document, where, you know, you can sort of promote that document in the fact that questions are being accepted, you know, through this form. You could do a Google form, really, and questions are being accepted through this Google form up until this time, and we'll make sure that, you know, we get through as many of these as we can. But it gives you somewhere to start, and maybe for people that aren't able to attend the meetings in person, or don't feel comfortable speaking in front of a large group of people and being that person to raise their hand and say, I have a question, it would be a really, really easy fix to ask for questions in advance.
I like that, Lynn. You onto something. And Stephanie, thanks for that. You just gave us an idea. Thank you for that question, Lynn. Because I think, people are trying to figure out more. I want to let you go, Lynn, because we got to let Stephanie go in about a minute. But people are frustrated. They want to have more access to their policymakers, to their elected officials, especially on the local and state level, I notice. And we have all this technology now, but then the elected officials seem even more inaccessible than they were before the technology era, before the huge, like, you know, information, digital heavy era that we're in right now. This technology was supposed to make them much more accessible.
True. Yeah. And a Google form could easily do that. At least let people feel like they were, you know, getting their feelings out, being heard in some way, and addressing those questions that come in.
Just because we have like the city council, which we do city council live tomorrow, every Thursday, Stephanie. There has a public comment period. You just gave me an idea with that. And maybe it's kind of time to approach city council or talk with them about it. But they have a public comment period. People can call in advance by 3 p.m. today. They got to call and say, hey, I'm going to be there tomorrow to testify for 3 minutes about this bill I'm concerned about. But I'm wondering if they could be using, but see, people feel like that's limited, that's constrained. And I wonder if there's a way where it's a supplement to the public comment period. It's like an ongoing public comment time or period where they can also, if they can't make it by Microsoft Teams, they can make it by just leaving that comment or question in Grouper, in that Grouper format. Yeah, I like that. That's what's up. Okay. That's why we like having Stephanie on. Stephanie Humphrey, digital lifestyle technology expert. You see her on Good Morning America, ABC. You see her here also regularly on WURD and programs like Reality Check WURD for our livelihood segment. Stephanie, thanks so much again. We'll talk to you soon. Be safe out there.
Alrighty, take care. See you soon.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's take a break. We're going to keep those phone lines open as we wrap up this Wednesday, midweek edition of Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back with your phone calls.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Tune in this Sunday at 2 p.m. for the Gastrology Conversation Show, providing information and understanding about your colon health with Dr. Stephen Blake.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. There's a question here. Someone made a very good point. Ms. Allen, we're supposed to vote for judges this year, actually. That's coming up. You've got races coming up a little bit later on this year in the spring. The primary schedule for May 18th in Philadelphia, and there will be, of course, general elections on November 2nd, 2021. We've got elections for district attorney, city controller, also city commissioners, inspector of city commissioners, like judge of election, inspector of election, common pleas judges, and municipal court judge elections are this year. They're always a mystery. They're always a mystery to folks. It's not a very transparent process at all, and so we have to figure out ways of, well, not me specifically, but especially Philadelphia votes, Philadelphia Commissioner's Office, they need to figure out a way to make that a lot more transparent. In media, we have to do a better job of reporting on that. No sense of right now, I can go online and I know what elections are taking place, but I don't know right now, are there any new candidates? Who are the candidates? I can't see that information. It's not a central spot that you can go to at the moment. Maybe I'm missing it. I just haven't found it. PhiladelphiaVotes.com right now. So please call the city commissioner's office and let them know I was kind of complaining openly on air that can they please at least just show us who's going to be, what are the judicial races? Can you, in a very user-friendly, central way, show what are the judicial races, who conceivably would be on that ballot if they can put that information there. But the first day of circulating and filing nominating petitions in Philly is next week, February 16th. And March 9th is the last day to circulate and file your nomination petitions. And March 10th is the first day to circulate and file nomination papers. March 16th is the last day to file objections to nomination petitions. And that's the calendar right now. This is very, you go to PhiladelphiaVotes.com to look at that calendar, look at the overall calendar for 2021, the election calendar. And so we bring on the Philadelphia City Commissioner's Office, but there are some major court elections that are coming up in 2021 that'll be very crucial, including the DA's race. Larry Krasner up against challenger Carlos Vega, former assistant district attorney. Vega has raised nearly $140,000. He's closing in on Larry Krasner's current $170,000 in war chest for what promises to be the big election in Philly of the year, district attorney. And a lot of national folks will be watching it too. Vega getting more donations locally than Krasner. Krasner, 3/4 of his donations are coming from outside of Philadelphia, outside sources. A lot of criminal justice reform, civil rights, reformist type activists, including like entertainer John Legend, who are pitching in to help Krasner get reelected. Vega getting most of his money from local sources and from people like the Fraternal Order of Police, just fraternal, like the Philly Police Union, putting a lot of money into Vega, backing up Vega and others who are less amenable to Krasner's reformist ways. So they're backing Vega. So, but that's kind of the arms race right now as far as that election looks, because it's it's all about the money when you're in a tight election like that. So, and we welcome folks who are running for office. We welcome them to please, during this election cycle, purchase an ad on WURD. So, because the vast majority of candidates who do advertise during the election cycle on WURD, they end up winning their races. So I did that analysis on my own. So, mainstream media outlet, you do buy ads on those predominantly white-owned institutions. We know, we hear them, we see them. So we are the exact same, and we have black super voters who are committed listeners to the station, and so they listen in. They hear who's actually and that's just how politics works. That's how it works. It's like people raise significant amounts of money, and they put their money where their mouth is if they want to win. It's just as simple as that. All right, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. I saw some breaking news actually, which you should all hear about. So there's new data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, otherwise known as the CDC, which says that using two masks, or double masking as it's being called, can even more significantly improve protection from COVID-19. So that's breaking news that's coming out of the CDC. Researchers found that the combination of two masks can block 92.5% of potentially infectious particles from escaping by creating a tighter fit around the face. That's huge. That's significant. Okay, so a knotted medical mask, right, can block 63% of aerosols that may contain coronavirus. A significant improvement from blocking only 42% of particles when unknotted. So it's like those basic medical masks, the knotted medical masks that you see people wearing, that just has a 63% effectiveness rate. So the study found that when both a source of infection and uninfected source were both fitted with double masks, the uninfected person's exposure to potentially infectious particles was reduced by 96.4%. When both people were knotted in tucked masks alone, the uninfected person's cumulative exposure to potentially infectious particles was reduced by 95.9%. So overall, real significant protection when you double mask. People should get to it now, because that's what the CDC. So now we have a responsible administration right now when it comes to pandemic response, and like the most important thing you can do, just start double masking. So and really, if you can, get kind of that standard surgical mask and put that on first, and then you can put a cloth, the kind of cloth mask you've been wearing. Some of you have been wearing like these really fashionable cloth masks. Put the cloth mask over it, and it will be a tight fit around the face. And I especially feel for people in the medical profession who have to do that all day, especially when they're in our medical institutions and hospitals, because I mean it can put a hurt on your face all day, but it's necessary, to make sure you don't get infected and you live the rest of your life without having to worry about coronavirus. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. But Ms. Allen, I appreciate that question. We'll keep track of that, on those municipal court, common pleas court judge elections coming up, as well as the DA's race and others. And there's Pennsylvania judicial races as well. We have to keep a very close eye on. Raphael Suleiman jumping in here on the zoning conversation we had earlier. If the zoning, this is Raphael Suleiman. Thanks for these comments, Raphael, and Facebook Live, facebook.com/4word. If the zoning codes along Parkside Avenue change, then the developers can turn the whole avenue into a mini Central Park West once they build a polo field in Fairmount Park. This is what they want to do anyway, since University City is expanding because of the new development being erected along 38th Street and a possible one at 41st Street too. Only one black lawyer is on City Council, Derek Green. That's what Raphael Suleiman is saying here. Zoning is a highly complex, litigious issue which will confound a person who is not well versed in business and law. He's absolutely correct there. We need to demand that more of our black city council members do their due diligence and study these issues before they vote. The black social scene and its recognition are nice, i.e. proclamations for the links and AKA, but we need people who are focused upon serious issues in the city. We absolutely do need that. And that was just, that was the disappointing aspect of last Thursday public comment period. No black voices on the zoning, you know, but you had like more than several, what sounded like white voices, who were basically essentially all in and offering kinds of insights, and the kind of insights that were supportive of our perspective and needing a zoning review commission. But then, you know, now it's going to be the real rubber to road on this is, okay, well, what's that commission going to look like? Who's going to participate on it? How much are we going to participate on it? Just zoning is just one of those. So we'll just continue to bring on more experts and more analysis to talk about that issue. Let's go to JR in Germantown while we got another couple of minutes. JR, real quick before we wrap the show here. How are you doing?
Yeah, we can make this real quick, Charles. As you know, I always lead off with a thanks to you and the station for their leadership and for their participation in the I guess keepers of the community and communication that you guys provide for us. I just wanted to share with you some of my experience I've had and see if you can help us in our plight for distribution of this vaccine, because the disparity, it's apparent that we are not getting our share of vaccine distribution. And I just wanted to put this out here that CVS, in the community, one of the prominent distribution sites, the Giant Pharmacy has it. CVS does not have it because, the distribution is not equitable. But in the Giant, my experience, Giant has it, and there's outlying pharmacies that, are distributing the vaccine in the upwardly, economic areas. I live in Cheltenham, actually, and I have a issue with my best friend came over to Cheltenham because he was on Medicare and got his vaccine, and like kind of teased me, man. He showed me his certificate and everything. I'm like, man, if you can get it, and my doctor's office won't even answer my phone. You constantly get. You
got it, and JR too. I'm a Mr. I gotta let you go because we're getting ready to wrap up. But I definitely got your point too. No, you're absolutely right. We've got to do better. But I'm gonna leave this here. Leave this thought. Folks spent so much time at the latter half of last year, focused so much on spewing anti-vaccine ideology and spreading so much doubt about whether or not to take the vaccine. They put so much energy into that, and we do need to have that unpacked conversation about medical racism, medical bias, et cetera. See where we are now? Like, we should have been spending that time getting up and gearing up and getting ready and getting coordinated while we're having those conversations, getting coordinated on making sure there's equitable distribution of vaccine, because the advocacy around that, just there was no energy in that. And now look at where we are. So I kind of partly blame, a lot of those folks who are out there like spewing the anti-vaccine, like we shouldn't do it. And now look at, you have people like Mr. JR, they're frustrated and they're scared because they want the vaccine. They wanted it all along. But, we haven't, the elected officials, the public officials are to blame. They should have been, and then it's still to blame. And they're not finding an equitable way to distribute this vaccine. But also to blame are folks, members of the community, and some folks were prominent voices who should have been putting some energy into, because it seems like a majority of folks in the community want to get vaccinated. They want to get inoculated. They understand how high the stakes are. But y'all were wasting time on this anti-vaxxing nonsense. And look at where we are now. And so, and even some people who were like, a few months ago were like, well, I want to do the vaccine, and they're trying to discourage people from taking the vaccine. Now they want it. And, you know, that's, you know, when we have those kinds of conversations that don't have facts attached to them, this is what happens. We get into dangerous situations like this. All right, so I'll leave that thought here. I thank you, Mr. JR. And we're going to try to sort it out and just try to be as vocal about it, and also ask the right questions and get this fixed, because it's an easy lift. It's not complicated. This is not rocket science to get people vaccinated and get 85% of the population inoculated so we can end the pandemic. As I've always said, either you want to end the pandemic or you don't. Which is it? This or that, as the Black Sheep song used to say. All right, that wraps this Wednesday edition of Reality Check. I'll be back tomorrow, Thursday, 10 a.m. sharp. Go to phlcouncil.com to sign up for public comment tomorrow. Check out which bills are going to be in public council. So go to phlcouncil.com for more information on that. Thank Jordan Booth, who had to step in for Troy Wilmore. Thank everyone else. We're headed into the source with the Black Women's Leadership Council. I believe that's coming up next. So continue to stay tuned in to WURD. Stay sharp, stay smart, but more importantly, please, everyone, stay safe out there. God willing, I'll see you tomorrow for the City Council Live at 10 a.m. sharp. Take care.